and welcome to this impromptu, unplanned, and certainly unsure whether our sound is going out, whether our video is actually working. We have no corner goblin here at LAWhammer's living room, so I'm not entirely certain whether I've set everything up right or not. But assuming that I have, if anyone can out there confirm that you can hear me. Oh, we've already got some comments come in. You can't hear me. Yay! So, assuming that I've got the case, we can bring up side-by-side view. Woo! Well, let's try again. Side-by-side view. Woo! Is there in the end? Hey, it's Lindsay. Woo! Okay, so what are we doing this evening? We don't expect very many people to pop up and say hi, because this is a rejig of the rejig of Alamennowyth. Now, if you were watching yesterday evening, you'll be aware that we redid all of our character sheets. Now, Lindsay, since yesterday evening to just now, sat down, went through and realised she made a couple of errors. There's a few things she wished she'd done differently, to the point that she was like, you know what, I'd really like to just redo this again from the beginning. So she's going to do it again from the beginning, which is fun if you happen to be out there wondering how our character generation works and you didn't catch last night. It's also fun if you've got any just general questions you'd like to ask about how our rules work, how our character generation works, how we deal with elves, what our paths are, how they work, or indeed anything else. Be aware that this stream is testing out some tech as well as we go. So I've got a host of things happening over in the corner without our corner goblin, Erin, over there monitoring it. So if anything goes wrong through the course of this stream, massive apologies. We'll just restart it and keep on restarting until we get it right. But I'm hoping that we're getting a dang fine recording coming over on the corner production PC over there, as well as the stream that we've got popping up on TikTok. It's not on TikTok, I was about to say TikTok, on Twitch. So beyond that, let's get started with this one. We're just going to go through the character generation process as we did before. I'm going to pause every once in a while to check the questions. If you've got any questions for me or for Lindsay, do not be afraid to drop them into the comments.
I'm not looking at the comments.
Lindsay won't be looking at the comments, but I will. So I'll pitch anything that is asked from you out there to her over there. So other than that, I'm going to start with the questions, just in case there is anything there. First, Kevin says you can see and hear me. Great. And why, says Nikki Devout, I missed the beginning. Why? Just loosely, Lindsay didn't like how it was quite built because she made a few errors. And she realised she made errors after the fact and she wanted to do it correctly. Particularly because our characters had quite the journey and she wanted to make sure that everything that she'd done was properly reflected. Anything else? Potrak just pops in and says you've missed nothing. That is very true. We have just started and Lindsay is just redoing her card sheet. Yeah, that's it. That's all we're doing. But if you do have any questions as to how we do stuff or what we do with our rules, do feel free to ask. Before, however, we dive into that, I have one other thing to say. Tomorrow over on Lorebeards, we're going to be doing an introduction to Warhammer in general, which, by the way, is such an enormous subject. I've been tapping away at various ways to try and resolve that throughout the course of the afternoon between doing other jobs, and it's certainly a big one. I'm really looking forward to it. Sotek and I have quite a lot to try and cram into our normal time slot for Lorebeards, so that's going to be super fun. Also, if you are a Rookery fan out there, do be aware that we are going to be having some pretty fun Rookery announcements in the next few weeks, but more on that later. Right, so I'm going to pass on over to Lindsay and say right at the very beginning, characteristics. So normally the first thing you do when you're making your character in Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, and indeed our house rules as well, is determine your species, but we know that already. Alamennowyth is an elf.
Oh yeah, I'm an elf.
You're an elf, well done. And on top of that, the next thing you normally do in our version of the rules is determine your heritage, to say what sort of background that you've come from. In Alamennowyth's case, that's Aeonir. She comes from the Lorelorn Forest up north. But
is that right?
I mean, looking at it and thinking about it again, I actually think this is wrong. And this is one thing that I was going to discuss with her this time round.
I was going to discuss it with you!
Yeah, there we go. And that's that very possibly she should instead have a Wizenlander or Nulner background, because the initial years of her life were spent in Nuln. Now, for those of you who've been watching our streams, you'll be aware that Alamennowyth is much older than the 50 years that she remembers. But of the 50 years she remembers, she has some sort of half-baked memories of the first couple of years, as her mind was slowly but surely moving out from its blanked infancy into understanding and proper reason. And then after that, it was pretty much entirely down in Nuln with Joros, her master on the Path of Shadows. And I think it might be fairer to do that than take the Elven route. However, that does mean there's going to be a couple of things missing.
Yeah, that is problematic because it has things like acute sense sight.
Exactly, because they're designed for elves. So what I would suggest is possibly skills on one side and talents on the other.
Okay, so the talents from the elf heritage and
absolutely.
the skills from Visenland?
Yeah, that makes sense completely. I don't think you got the Visenland set there, though, do you?
I do not.
Yeah, you do not. So I'd use the Reichland set because it's more than close enough. Because you're sitting in a city and it's largely the same as good old...
But then I'll have to take language Bretonian or Wastelander.
Instead of?
What do you mean instead of?
You remember, you don't have to take any of them. It's take 3 skills at +5 and 3 skills at +3.
Oh, and I can still take ranged balls.
Yes, you can.
But then I won't get ranged throw-in, which I really want.
Oh, no! So,
as you'll note, already making changes.
As you'll note, changes will immediately begin. So you can figure yourself out in that. Will I just double check to see if there's any comments there? So starting off right at the very beginning, let me just go back a little bit because there was quite a lot there. I'll also say, just before I check all these comments, the card sheet that we're using and Lindsay's currently filling in can be clicked through online right now. So if you happen to be out there and you want to see what she's doing, you can go find her card sheet online. Now, it's in a couple of places if you want the link to it. It's over in Discord, and there's probably someone in Discord right now who's, as I recall, it's already been posted up inside Discord by one of the moderators, wasn't it? I think it's over there already, so do check that over there, because I had a quick conversation about it earlier today. But on top of that, you can also find it over on Patreon. So if you pop over to the LAWhammering Patreon, if you just pop up to the first post there, you'll see a link directly through to our character sheet on there, so you'll be able to go and follow through with what Lindsay's doing on that side. So, beyond that, let's go quickly through the comments. Has anyone seen Greta character sheet? Her trappings say to keep her hair neatly in place.
Oh, that's Lucas's trappings. She's got Lucas's trappings by
accident. Oh, she's got Lucas's trappings there.
That
should be deleted. Good old copy paste. Greta's character sheet is amazing, says Keravan. Glad to hear that. Greta is pretty damn decent. These people are RPG freaks. Yes, we are. Hope you're feeling better. I'm almost there. Still got quite a lot of congestion in my chest, and you might hear me cough every once in a while. It's one of the reasons we were really happy last night to just be doing the character sheet thing, because I'm not entirely sure I would have been in the best place to do a full role-playing session. I'm feeling, however, a lot better. We had COVID over Christmas here, which was the best way to spend Christmas, by the way. And then following up from that, I had a chest infection. So while everyone else was getting better and getting ready for New Year, I was just descending down into a pit of hell as my chest clogged up further and further and got into worse pain. And that lasted for a good week or so after the New Year. So I'm very, very pleased to be where I am right now, catching up with lots of stuff, including card sheet. The Drayman says, what did you say? Oh, no, my comments on the thing here are not the easiest to follow. I'll be sure to spam it to all my friends who will surely be annoyed again. Not quite sure what you're discussing, whether it's just our streams in general. Yes, you do that. The best thing to do ever. Protrack pops in with I very much card creator nerd, as are we. But really do enjoy these things. Yeah, they're a lot of fun. I enjoy doing them as well. Curious on how do elves compare to the rules as written? Ours, so. Are elves still uber stat killers as before? Yes, but we have a variety of balances in place for that. The most important of which is our path rules, which we'll discuss as the streams goes on, I'm sure. Keravan then pops in. One of my GMs would love this. He loves character creation above all. I do enjoy character creation. I'm not going to be sure how to pronounce this one. Dubs TN? Let's just call you Dubs. Hey, Dubs. Andy, Dubs. So happy to see you back in better health, as am I. Happy New Year. Thanks very much. Deeply appreciated to you and all the cheers. Many great streams this year. Yeah, we've got quite a lot planned. We've obviously got the LAWhammer streams and we've got the Rookery streams as well, which we're going to be doing a post much later this evening. When we've finished all this, I'm going to be doing all my Rookery bits and bobs. That's going to be fun. But on top of that, we've got some things that are coming out for the Rookery that I'm very much keen to show, discuss, and play. So that's going to be something as well you're going to see through the course of this year. Plus, obviously, it's the good old Warhammer Old World year, so I'm really looking forward to seeing how that impacts and massively changes the established Warhammer lore that we all know. Because as is almost certainly going to be the case, they're going to make a host of decisions either because they didn't know the existing lore, because they want to update it into something different. And that means that we're going to see ones that we expect, like perhaps Malekith, bearing a different name, as I'm sure a few of you have already noted has been mentioned.
Malekith.
Good old Uncle Malekith. But beyond that, we're also going to have a variety of other bits, like the Mootlands borders have gone and changed significantly. They've gone back to the borders as they were presented in Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 2nd edition in the GM set in there. In fact, it might not even be GM, it might be Sigmar's Heirs. With the Mootland centered around the confluence of the Blue Aver and the Upper Aver, rather than all the way around that confluence. It's a completely different border. And is that because the borders have changed? Is that for another reason? Is it simply because the studio have decided, or at least in this case Forge World, whomever, have decided to go with that map over another map? Who can say? But what is certain is it significantly changes the borders of the Empire 200 years or so ago. Further, if you take a look at where Sylvania's borders, the capital of Sylvania, as it's long been stood, lies outside its current borders in the old world. So that's also super fun. So we're almost certainly going to be discussing about that in one fashion or another through a variety of streams through the course of the this year. I'm already that sucker who's bought pretty much everything that the old world has to offer, and I'm quite looking forward to it arriving. Anyway, moving down. Dark Star Nova, good idea to split it. She has lived 2 lives. Yes, she has lived 2 lives. If we were to make Alamennowyth's character from before her memories were, let's say, erased 50 years ago by Crieli of the Waste, it's fair to say that the card sheet would probably surprise a lot of you out there. It's not just the LAWhammer version of Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, but the Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay version of the rules that I originally wrote were designed to have no upper end. And some people, as they're creating stuff for Warhammer, don't really grasp what that means. They're still very much lost in the 1st edition or 2nd edition statting barriers where anything above 70 feels really big. Anything above 80 feels huge. Anything above 90, attribute-wise, is huge. That isn't the case for Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 4, and especially isn't the case for the LAWhammer version. You'll find that we do have a couple of exceedingly old elves in our game. They are not the only powerful things, though. I have already started out for our game Archaon, for example. And Archaon is, quite frankly, crazy. He would walk through our PCs like they are nothing, and that's almost exactly as it should be. In the same fashion, the statted version of Arthyrus Gorman, who's the current Supreme Patriarch of 8 Colleges of Magic, his stats and his capabilities, again, would make our PCs look like tiny little minuscule minnows. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that their characteristics are necessarily much higher. For example, if we take a look at Gerhardt, if you watched our stream last night, Gerhardt's intelligence is all the way up in the 90s. Gerhardt is legitimately a one-in-a-generation genius. And that is settling in as he grows older and more mature as well. His final intelligence stat is almost certain to be well over 100, assuming that he survives through. And that's for a human. When we consider the equivalents over in other species, you'll begin to see how the stats, as they're often used both in the books and generally at most people's tables, don't necessarily reflect the true capabilities of what some of the more famous and larger NPCs of the Warhammer world has to offer. If I was to, for example, stat up Teclis, which I've already started doing actually, our Teclis would be bluntly extraordinary, because Teclis is extraordinary, in the same way that, say, Malekith, or however we choose to name him, his the Witch King stats are also going to be something really special, because he is ancient and carries all the experience of his years in his character sheet. And that is something that definitely is the case for our versions. I was asked yesterday about doing a post about statting top-tier careers and top-tier characters and how best to do it quickly. And I think that there is going to definitely have to be a stream about that at some point, because I think a lot of people out there just don't make their big characters big enough, and it just leaves the PCs looking like monsters if you happen to play the game for more than maybe a few months. However, before I do that, there was a big sigh there. What's up?
No, it's fine. Eltharina is considered her native tongue, as is Reichspiel, so I don't need to read Reich twice.
You do not need to take that twice.
But I do need to take it 3 times if I wanted to speak Drew here.
Not to
read and
speak
write
it,
Drew here.
To read and write Drew
But
here.
I'm not going to take that.
The ones that are your native languages, you don't need to pay for with the read-write. The read-write, that comes for free.
Got it.
Okay, cool. Right, let's carry on. Is there anything that you need to do? Have you finished off your basic characters?
Right, I've done my elf heritage.
Excellent.
And added all my talents on. I've taken slightly different skills.
So what talents and skills have you taken so that we all know?
So in skills, I've taken Animal Care 3 because she's used it multiple times. So and it can only come from here, I think. Gossip 3 and Ranged Bow 3. I figured Joros just couldn't have her not able to fire a bow at all.
If you don't know, Joros is her master on the Path of Shadows. Joros is a character that has long been in my writing for Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay and was first hinted at through one of his pseudonyms in second edition, all the way back about 2006, 7, somewhere around there. If you notice any mentions of the word Cramond, that's Joros, using one of his human guises. And Cramond popped up in several books and even popped up in Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 4 as the character, I believe, in the advisor career, because he's advising the I think it's the Count of Nuln at that point, because it's before the Count of books here.
I need to check.
Well, you want to check that out? Well, I'm a doing. So Joros is her master in the Path of Shadows, and Joros is, in our game at least, a very important character. In the same way that you might argue that someone like Orion is a very important character for Azrai Wood Elves. Joros, however, is attached directly through to Ladriel, mists and shadows, and are wandering and staying quite far away from the rest of the elves. And Joros, as has already been pointed out in a couple of points in our streams, is directly related to Nuln in a variety of ways. I won't go into
the electro count of Nuln 2475.
So I was right. It's almost like I wrote it.
No, I wrote it and you changed it.
It's almost like she wrote it and I changed it. I think I wrote that one.
No, I wrote it and then you changed it to be, I wrote it as though he was advising the Countess, and then you took it and rewrote it and took it back in time.
It's funny how these things happen, isn't it?
So it was the Count of Nuln.
I trust her, not me.
You made it better.
Glad to hear. Because Cramond was mentioned in later around 25-22, and it also shows that he has to be at least 50, and that's a good little a side hinter. Anyway, let's go through our comments as we can all know. You were about to do the next part. Actually, before
what did I say? Ranged Bow 3. Oh yeah, the 5s.
What's the 5?
Charm 5, Melee Basic 5, and Lore Nuln 5.
Excellent. And what have you taken for your talents?
I've taken.
And do you remember you get one for free?
No, this is Heritage.
Yes, and you get what? Everybody got one for free.
Oh, a random talent.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll come to that. So my 2 random talents were Luck and Animal Affinity.
Excellent.
I've got Acute Sense Sight, Arboreal. I took Attractive instead of Hardy. I took Calculating. I took Schemer instead of Rover. And I took Night Vision and Read Write. And the 2 random ones are Luck.
Okay, and do you want to reroll Animal Affinity, since that's what we've done last night? We are starting from scratch, and I'm in a generally giving mood, since we are doing it from the beginning.
The only thing, well, I quite like her having Animal Affinity.
It's something that's never come up in game?
No, exactly. And what has come up in game is the fact I've used Ambidextrous in game. Because I got it somehow in a career, but I can't.
Did you use Ambidextrous ever?
Well, yeah, when? I guess maybe I didn't.
I don't think I recall you ever using it. So I'm happy to you can keep it. I'm not in any way.
03.
What's that?
Ambidextrous. Or Lightning Reflexes, 30.
No. You'll get your first roll. So hey, you can have your Ambidextrous as you had first time round. I'm cool with that. Alrighty. Let's carry on with our comments. Karnik drops in the link. Thank you very much for Alamennowyth's character sheet. If you haven't checked previously, further up the comments, you can see the link to the character sheet that Lindsay's working on right now. And as we discussed right at the beginning of the stream, if you have any questions about how we make our characters, about the rules, about elves, about anything else, feel free to ask in the Twitch comments as we go. So yeah, it's in the Discord under LAWhammer discussions. Thanks very much, ProTrack, for confirming that. Carmick then drops in, easier to be able to follow with more than just one sheet tonight, unlike jumping between all 6. Yeah, absolutely. That was interesting. Dubs brings in nailed the pronunciation, mate. I'm not sure what for, but it was the T-Dubs TN.
T-Dubs TN.
I'm still just calling you Dubs out because it's just easier. You're about to move on to the next part?
Yeah, but you're talking so much and so fast.
That's
so
just
loud.
what I do.
I can't take it. Right, so my first career, thanks Joros, was hustler. Street workers who guide punters to their choice vices.
So, Joros wanted to get rid of Alamennowyth and tried everything within his power to do so. Part of that was his very special training where he just sent her off to do stuff and ignored her. We won't go into the details, but that was the beginning and set her off on the bod career. Because Joros, what a guy.
Right, so in here, I get, 8 at...
So you get, not 8, you just get 40 skill points.
40 skill points.
You get 1 talent, and you get 15 characteristic points. Now, you might notice that's slightly different to the rules as written, or Rawhammer, as Lindsay dubbed it over in Discord.
I did.
Rules as written hammer. And so in Rawhammer, you only get yourself one of the characteristics getting +5, but in our version, the whole point of the character building part is to allow you to complete your first initial career so that you can start in tier 2 of the various career trees that are out there. That was always supposed to be the case, but certain rules were removed at a relatively late stage of the rule writing process, meaning that some of the XP bonuses that you could have gained were lost, meaning that it was impossible to complete your career. In the LAWhammer version of the rules, we've just simplified everything, just gone, you've got enough to complete your career if you wish to do so, or you could start stacking out in others. And indeed, as was mentioned last night, if you want to be exceedingly frugal with your XP points, it's actually better putting all 15 of your characteristic points into a single attribute if you can, although I think there's a limit of +10 onto 1 or whatever. But that can save you a few XP later, and you just buy the other ones at +5, because the first +5 is much cheaper than the later +15 points.
I'm saving some XP by taking 15 of my skill points and using them to put Charm, Melee Basic, and Lore and all from 5 to 10. And unlike last night, I'm going to keep it up as I go along, because that's where I went wrong yesterday.
So, Steam Sage pops up and says,
hi.
Is this Andy's monologue while Lindsay does math stream? Yeah.
Yeah, you should talk about Elven paths, because you kind of said Joros is her master on the path, but like, why do they need a master? And even though elves can get like ridiculous attributes, sometimes like Alamennowyth, she came off a path that she shouldn't have come off really weirdly, and she's kind of gone back to nothing.
Yes, she has. Yeah. And that's part of our path rules as well. I'll get onto that once I've done these little comments, because I think that's a really good idea. Good Lord, I would love to see the sheep for Archeon.
I only just said that to spite Sage, so it wasn't just your monologue and maths. Just so you know. That's how I roll.
Yeah, the Lords of the End Time should be someone special. I absolutely agree. Walking through the PCs, the Space Marines should do an Inquisitorium. Not quite sure what you're saying. Oh, no, I do see what you're saying. And yes, that is the case. Next is, should really do an NPC monster stream and how to do high-level encounters. I did a blog on that some time ago concerning how to build some orcs. I did an entire orc encampment to show how quick and easy it could be done, and also how far you should go for building your average NPC bad guy. And I remember at the time there was a significant amount of surprise at how high I had laid the stats for what was a relatively mid-tier war boss. That mid-tier war boss would by itself, I mean, can you really use gender for orcs? Whatever, by themselves, would almost certainly wipe out most parties, even of experienced PCs. And that's how, it was designed to be. So there is a blog out there already on my old LAWhammer blog. I'll pop a link up for that over in Discord, assuming I remember after the stream. And we can discuss that out if anyone's interested. But I do think that there is definitely an argument for doing a bigger stream concerning NPCs, monsters, and how to handle them anyway. Caravan drops in with a Gerhardt is a supernumerate genius. Yes, he is. and he couldn't get rid of supernumerate. As anyone who watches yesterday's stream will find out, he tried and rolled up a random talent and got supernumerate again. If you're wanting to watch yesterday's stream, if you missed it, that's going to be going up live on Monday. It's currently uploading, but because the file size for this one is so much larger than normal, we are not quite sure as and when it's going to finally upload. We started today and we're hoping that it'll be finished by tomorrow at some point so that we can test it all out and make sure that it's all worked according to plan, because we are attempting to do 4K for the first time. Our cameras aren't quite perfectly set up for that yet, but all the tech in the background hopefully is. Alrighty, so let's see what else we have. The Dreamer drops in, the advisor. I have a card sheet for him, by the way. Steve says, ha ha ha, you're welcome for the break, Lindsay. I will keep on talking regardless of what people out there say.
I forgot a talent that she has.
What's that?
It's perfect pitch.
Yeah, drop that one.
Yes, and that adds
Sing.
It adds 3 things, I think.
It gives you +1.
Oh yeah, adds entertain, sing, and it gives you a boon on compose music, entertain, sing, and language tonal.
Correct. So it's got a boon. So if you don't know out there, boons in our game are extra successes, and successes in our game is just what we call success levels. So we just call them successes. So if you get a boon, you get +1 success if your test is successful. It's basically a slightly different wording for how the core rulebook handles it already. Right, so next, Protract drops in and says, I need to find that NPC building. I really don't understand some high stats like the mutants and other beasties that seem to one-shot our PCs. There is nothing wrong with them one-shotting your PCs, particularly if your PCs are younger. If you don't understand why it's happening or how it's happening, that's a slightly different situation. But I do believe that there is something here to be discussed, because Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay is quite unlike other role-playing games. It is fine to have big gribblies which will kill your PCs in single hits. Totally fine. Warhammer handles this in a way that very few other games do, because it's basically got lives like you're Mario about to jump down a pipe, because you've got fate points. And those fate points allow you to learn that you shouldn't attack certain bad guys, because you'll have your ass handed to you. It's not one of those games where the PCs are expected to be able to handle everything in combat. It's one of those games where the PCs are legitimately expected to fail in certain combats, and if they charge in, they're potentially in trouble. And that's something that the game teaches you through its fate points, and you as a GM don't need to worry anywhere near as much as you do in other games about bad guys potentially doing the effective TPK, total party kill, because you've got fate points to back you up, and it's totally fine to be in a situation where the PCs themselves find themselves having to spend fate points because they try to take on more than they can handle, particularly if they're a bunch of bakers or, beggars or some equivalent. If they go charging into an orc war boss, they're going to get their ass handed to them, and learning that at an early point is not a bad thing. You'll find that many Warhammer scenarios often have some sort of unimportant early combat where something can hand their ass to them, but it's generally well within the killable range. So a fate point or 2 will be spent, and they can realize, generally the PC group that is, that they are not equipped to deal with all combat, hopefully. Now, if they do take on this initial combat and completely wipe the floor with them, then great. That means they've got a relatively combat-heavy party, and they've managed to use the rules to the best of their abilities, and perhaps this is going to be one of those parties that aren't going to have the same difficulties that others may. But Warhammer is one of those lovely games where you've actually got an opportunity to make those mistakes and not have to lose your character because of that. It's about... there's not many games where you have that sort of easy freedom as a GM to throw nastiness at your PCs, to have them completely out of their depth, and not watch the entire party die because of this. So yeah, be aware fate points are there not just as a PC tool, but also as a GM tool. There's lots of ways that they can be used in a variety of ways. Kevin then drops on and says, I'll add a reminder for the blog link in mod chat. That would be super handy. Thanks very much for that, Kevin. Enormously.
So the talent,
appreciate it.
She gets like 1 free talent. The 4 talents are blather, cat-tongued, empathic, and gregarious. Mm-hmm. And thinking, like, when you have Joros as your master, you become pretty adept at lying pretty quickly. So I'm going to take cat-tongue. Or empathic to try to gauge his moods, like one or the other. I think, and I'm not sure which she would have gone down. I think probably in the first instance, she either lied by instinct or it would have been empathic because she was too new to lie.
I think either will do. I mean, you're probably going to take both anyway.
I am going to take both, but for the story, I want to know which one she takes.
I think she almost certainly wouldn't have learned to lie first because she was walking blank. She would have made mistakes.
Exactly.
Okay, so cat tongue would have come. And the other one was what?
Empathic.
Now, that sort of shows it's coming. Empathic would be the first one. Realised she made some mistakes, then learned the cat tongue.
I mean, there's also bladder or gregarious, but they're not really her. She's not.
Yeah, totally.
Right, so empathic.
There's a question for you from Karnik who asks, on your card sheet, where are the fortune points in the reroll show?
They are shown, the fate shows your fate points and your current fate.
Where is it?
I'm explaining. So fate up in attributes is your fate points, and current fate is fate plus fortune, and so your fortune points are derived just from luck in your fate.
Okay, so the answer is up on the characteristics near the top, up to the attributes. Look for the one that's fate right at the very end of the line, and that shows how many fate points that they have. And the current box at the bottom is how many fortune points they have. So that'll be modified according to the luck talent, which is automatically calculated by the card.
Oh, that's confusing though, because that's supposed to be your initial fate, but it's not anymore.
No, it just changes it. You can knock it down.
Yeah. So initial and current is slightly misleading though.
As I recall, there might be a box for that, but don't worry about it just now.
Let me check my other character sheet.
Right, so let's see if there's anything else here. Protrack comes in. Thanks very much for the explanation. Really helpful, as it'll be my first time GMing this for non-Warhammer people. Ha ha ha. Don't worry too much about things being a little bit nasty. If you're doing yourself a first-time adventure, there's a few adventures out there which really do set the tone for Warhammer relatively well. If you're looking for one that does have a rather nasty combat that can look like it should freak out your players, the one that we put in place for the starter set, so that's Looks Could Kill, is not a bad place to begin. That adventure was rejigged a little bit here and there to try and make sure that it helped play upon expectations and twist those expectations around a little. There's some really fun little bits in that, but it's 100% free, so you can go grab that from DriveThruRPG right now. However, if you're wanting just a quick one-off that really does nail the tone of Warhammer in relatively few words, I would go for Night of Blood instead. Again, free up there. It was originally written for Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 1st edition and was in White Dwarf and was republished in another couple of places. And I got Lindsay, of all people, to update that for 4th edition. We were originally going to be using that adventure for a convention adventure because it really does show off a lot of the core themes and tones of Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay in a relatively short playtime. It can be played generally in about 3 to 4 hours with ease, and sometimes even quicker if you've got a GM that's ready and prepared for that. I can help new players through how combat might work. It starts off with nailing the tone for you should be worried about combat, get away from this, and then leans towards a host of, I won't spoil it, but situations that very much speak to what, for many people, Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay is about. So Night of Blood is free up in DriveThruRPG right now. 100% recommended. It's a great one. I was, as I say, originally going to use that as a convention adventure, but we ended up using it for a variety of other things instead. It was originally, I think, actually put together for Gen Con, as I recall. We did that PDF in like 4 days. It had to be turned around super fast as we were building towards Gen Con after the release of... It was actually for the release of Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 4 that year. So, yeah, that was super exciting.
So I completed my first career.
So first career down.
I completed it with slightly fewer things because now I know they come later, and she wouldn't have got gregarious till later, for instance.
Her ability to gossip and work with others. So Alamennowyth at this point was somewhat distant from those, and somewhat shell-shocked as well, particularly in her early years in Null. So 100% agreed. Is there any other talent you didn't take?
I didn't take cat-tongued. I'll take that later.
Yeah, to show her, because to begin with, he really is not happy with her not telling the truth to him, not dealing with things correctly. Tells her off quite a lot and is sometimes really harsh, and at other points just doesn't care. making him a very difficult person to predict.
Mercurial.
Yeah, mercurial, although, given that has to do with Mercury.
Ladreliel.
Ladreliel, yeah, he's very Ladreliel.
He's very Ladreliel.
He's very Ladreliel. Bellicorial. Sigmarial.
So I've completed that career, though, which means...
How many XP spent?
100, 200, 450.
Might be worth having that just marked down on a spreadsheet that auto adds.
I don't have a spreadsheet that auto adds.
But you've got one right there that you could just use and just put the numbers in at the side. Just do a column ad. Oh, that's where your mistakes happened last time.
My mistake happened last time because I didn't update the sheet when I wrote it on the piece of paper. Okay, maybe you're right. I'll get with.
You could just add it straight on the sheet you're using. So just put the numbers on one column that's open at the far side, and then just do a column ad on that. Have you not got a column just on the far side there?
No.
Okay, then don't worry about it.
I don't. And I'm on my iPad, so it's hard to manipulate this.
Yeah, so I wouldn't worry about it, or I might dive in it, but I'm currently got the Stream Manager open, so that's what I would normally have done. Anyway, that aside, career done. What's the next career you're moving into?
To bold peddlers of vices in exchange.
So basically, a prostitute. Down in Nuln in the Brass Hole or the Golden Hoop, depending on what you want to call it, one of the bawdleries in Nuln at this point. And this is approximately 50 years ago, so we're looking at around about the 60s and 70s? 60s in this particular case. So that sounds good. I'm going to dive back into the comments because we have quite a few more there coming in. So, Zero File says, can we talk about the Elven Paths? I thought that sounded interesting. Yes, I'm going to do an entire bit about that in a moment, but I'll get through all the comments first. That's a really good, Lindsay also suggested, so it's a really good comment to bring up. Where in the card sheet are 40 points rerolls? We've already got that. Thank you very much for the explanation, not problems. Thanks from Carmet. Excellent. Spartan Elite goes, hello there. Hello there. Great to see you there. It's rare for me to drop by. Great to see you. Assuming you're still there. Portrait drops in. I was thinking about Night of Blood, and if everything goes well, continue to the starter set, maybe even all the way to Enemy Within. So, loosely speaking, my suggestion would be if you're intending something like that, go Night of Blood, and then from Night of Blood, find a nice, neat way to move into Looks Could Kill. Looks to Kill automatically takes you into the Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay starter set. The starter set has a wealth of stuff in there. Andy and I wrote freaking tons of material for Ubersreich, 64 pages worth of adventure hook-tastic stuff. So popping in there and using perhaps some of the Ubersreich adventures will pretty much give you everything you need to get grounded with the setting and potentially set up what you're going to be doing as you move towards the Enemy Within. There's an adventure for taking you from Ubersreich up towards the beginning of the Enemy Within, but I would argue that there are potentially better ways of handling that transition. I felt that there was definitely something more that could have been done with that adventure in particular. So it may not suit you. You may find, however, it perfectly suits your group. It didn't really suit what I was doing with mine. But if it does suit your group, then away you go with it. Then pop into the Enemy Within, and then from that point onwards, move on, forwards. I will say, however, that if you are doing that, the attributes of everything that's laid inside the Enemy Within are going to be an absolute walkover, a pushover. They're going to be super easy for the PC group that you'll be dealing with to deal with in turn. Your XP by this point probably going to be somewhere in the region of around about 4 to 5k, maybe 2 to 3k, depending upon how much adventuring you do down in Ubersreich. That being the case, most of your characters will be in their second or perhaps third career. If you're using the rules as written careers, good old Lawhammer, you're going to find yourself powering through up to about the third tier relatively quickly. So I would be careful when you move on to the Enemy Within. One of the things I did when we presented our version, and if you've watched any of the Lawhammer version of the campaign, is I completely rejigged, rebuilt, and redid every NPC in the game. And that significantly improved it as far as I was concerned. You, if you've watched through it, we'll get an idea of some of the things that we did. Right. Moving down there, Button says hello there. Quick question: is there a Warhammer Fantasy roleplay book about dwarf holds and history? There is. It's for first edition though, Stone and Steel. It's an old one, but it's still a very, very good one. Stone and Steel is a fine tome in general. Do recommend it. Some things have changed since it was released, but not a lot. It has, much like some of the older sources in general, this one was a lovely bridge. Warhammer made a lot of changes to the Warhammer Fantasy roleplay setting, and Stone and Steel was written after many of those changes were made. So it means that the source for the later books for, say, 6th, 7th, and 8th edition Warhammer was the same as the source for that role-playing book, meaning that the dwarfs that we know and love from Warhammer Fantasy Battle were reflected in Stone and Steel almost entirely. It's got some minor details here and there that are very old school and perhaps won't necessarily fit into a modern interpretation of what the dwarfs are, but there is more than enough there to really give you a very strong idea of what dwarfs are like, so do recommend that. Beyond that, there's also the Grudge Lore book that came out from Black Library. Now, Grudge Lore is not a very well-known book, but it's definitely available in some places for £54 billion. I imagine you could probably pick it up on eBay for more money than, I don't know, the sun is bright. But it's a lovely collection of not just the stuff that Stone and Steel developed and added, but also a whole bunch of extra material from the novels and from the fantasy battle game. And it's just a background book, so there's no rules or anything else in there. It's just loads of background about dwarves, primary wars they fought, who they are, and similar. A pretty handy little book if you've got the ability to find a copy. So that's the good old dwarves. Moving on, and hey, if you're focused, thanks very much for subscribing. You rock. We love you. Kermit says, when does she become the Adorabelle, or is that a past life? So the Adorabelle is the next step right after what she's currently doing. So she ends up working in the brass hole for a good, 3, 4, 5 years? She's there.
Yeah.
And
she's not sure. There's a lot of drugs consumed.
Yeah, lots of drugs back in the early 60s and 70s.
Back in the 60s.
Back in the 60s. Yeah, totally. And was somewhat out of it for a good chunk of that. But eventually, she wears down Joros, and Joros realizes that he's not getting rid of her fast for all he's really trying to do so. So he starts making her do things, moving her beyond the face that she's presenting and moving her into another one. Joros was quite keen.
The first one was Fluvial.
Fluvial, the good old elven whore from Null. And wearing a different face, which was the Adorabelle, and how well she could cope with shifting from one mask to another. And the Adorabelle was indeed that mask where she moves from being effectively a bod to effectively the equivalent of a courtesan, somebody who's working from court and is, as it was back then, earning quite a lot.
This is the period in which she spends 6 months with the Duke of Tame.
A little bit later on in her Adorabelle period is when she's with the Duke of Tame. It's also worth noting from this part of her history that... And do I want to say that yet? No, I might do that in flashback, actually. Loosely speaking, Joros is paying more attention, and she is wearing currently at least 2 faces. The first face is the bod face, which never really stops, and then the Adorabelle face, and she has to flick from one to the other, and to the other, and to the other, as her character shifts and manages both lives with ease and keeps them entirely separate. And that's a fun part for her. Are you moving on to Courtesan now, by any chance?
No, I'm still in Bod.
How's it going with Bod?
It's fine. Just trying to decide what to...
What talents have we taken so far?
I've taken Attractive ×2 to be my twice...
Is Attractive...
in Bod.
Yeah, it might be worth taking it once here if you're doing it as the story, and then boosting it when you move into Courtesan.
To get out of Bod, I need to have a talent at 2, and none of the other talents I wanted
Point taken. Okay, so there's a really good rule difference that we have in our game in comparison to the raw game, rules as written game. And that's that when you move from a first tier career, you need 1 talent taken once. To move from a second tier career, you need to have 1 talent taken twice. To move from a third tier career, you need 1 talent taken 3 times. That keeps on going all the way up to, in our case, 6th tier careers, because many of our careers have got 6 tiers. And to move out of a 6th tier one, you need 1 talent taken 6 times, which is a lot of XP. 100 for the first purchase, then 200, then 300. We're at 600 already as we're building up to 1,200. No, it's 1, 2, 3. I'm doubling each time. It's not exponential. But nevertheless, a lot of XP required to get that into place. It's a small difference, but it is a significant one. And yeah, good point on the attractive. So, yes?
So, and what do you need to complete your career in terms of...
You need 8 skills.
No,
you need 3 of your attributes, your characteristics, at your
10.
tier times
tier.
5. So if you're in tier 2, which you currently are, that's 3 of them at 10. Again, that's another difference that we have. Our game isn't just about causing XP costs to increase or putting in extra things to try and slow things down. It's about trying to ensure that characters who are using the same career paths don't all look identical. And using the rules as written, all characters that work their way down through some of the career paths will have exactly the same number of advances taken in all of their characteristics at a minimum. Meaning that if you hit the 3rd tier, you're going to have yourself a good 3, 4, 5 characteristics, all at plus 15. Meaning that there's very little variety between different people who've all followed that same path. And that's just functionally not interesting, because you start creating carbon copies. And it's one of the things that Fantasy Roleplay 4th edition was designed to try and interrupt. And it did a pretty good job of that. And I'd go on to that in detail if we have nothing else to talk about as we're working our way through. But one of the things our game does is, as you make your way through the tiers, only 3 characteristics need to be taken to the minimums for that tier, not all of them. Meaning that some characters will have different characteristics that they have increased. Some might be very high in one, some might not have taken any of another one at all, which is an important part of what I feel allows our game to express lots of different types of character, possibly all within the same career trees. And that's quite important when you consider that many scenarios within Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay take place in environments where many people may all be in the same career. Say, for example, you're playing The Enemy Within. Several sections of that take place in upper society, upper class society. Everyone's going to have been through the noble career. And if everyone who's been through the noble career ends up with exactly the same stats, exactly the same skill mix, exactly the same everything else, we've got a problem. And that tackles that to a degree. It's one of the reasons as well why all of our careers started off with 10 skills at tier 1, not 8, and 8 of them had to be taken to plus 5 advances. That was, interestingly, a rule that I noted was picked up by the official game after we installed it in ours, which I found exceedingly amusing. I was like, well, look at that! They've ported that one over. But yeah, it's a good rule because it allows for more variation between the characters who are all in the same career. So I thought that was quite important. So anything else to note on Bod as you're completing?
Moving up to Courtesan.
Moving up to Courtesan now, the Adorabelle.
And Courtesan's got a few, it's got compose any, which I think will go for writing. I mean, does she write a lot of letters, poetry?
She doesn't write a lot. As long as you've got the skill, you don't necessarily, well, that is the skill, isn't it? That is the skill. So yeah, it's definitely worth taking.
Yeah, but she could have composed music for her flute.
She could, but I don't think she's really done a lot of that, is she? And she has written letters.
Yeah.
There have been points where she's done it, yeah.
Lore heraldry, which I might take, I might not.
I think is a necessity.
Yeah, I'll
you
take
can't not take lore heraldry. She's used it.
No, she hasn't, because she never had lore heraldry.
She has. She's used it. She's used it.
Yeah, but only. But is that only because I have encountered it, written it down, and then read it back from my note? That's a skull.
No, she's used it because you used it. Because you recognised heraldry that she wouldn't, and you deployed it.
I don't know if that's true. I think that
100% true. No. I have it in my notes.
Really?
I have every time you have transgressed your character sheet, indeed, in my notes. As those who read my GM blog will know.
I'm very careful, though. Usually it's something that you've told me, and then I've come back to it later.
Right. So I would suggest taking the heraldry or not. In fact, I'm quite happy for you to not take it, actually.
No, I'm taking it.
No, it's okay.
No, I'm taking it.
It's fine.
I took it yesterday. I'm taking it.
I'm just being a dick now. Right, so being a dick aside, what's next on our old comment point? Yeah, even if I'm throwing up my guts.
Is this going to be us squabbling? Yes.
Oh, 100%.
Yes, it may.
It's half the fun. Even if I've been throwing up my guts in the meantime, thanks for keeping things positive, Andy. I do apologise if you're throwing up your guts over there. It is nice to drop down live for you to come in and see us.
I would like the receipts on heraldry.
I'm not giving them to you.
But I could prove you wrong with my notes.
You won't. So, Portrait comes in. Part of the current life, if I remember correctly. Yes, correct. That's for the Adora Bell. There's a workbook first edition. Yes, there is. Andy Leask added a new sheet yesterday to track his spend. Yes, he did, which you could copy paste over if you wanted. I watched all of LAWhammer, all right. I got to say that you might be one of the best champs I've ever seen. Good sir, Portrait. Oh, that's super sweet of you to say so. Well, let me adjust my little bow tie here.
So how much heraldry do you think I've displayed?
You definitely displayed some.
15?
And you can choose.
I'll go for 15.
15 pretty good, by the way.
Just because I censor maybe a penalty.
No penalty at all.
Like a spiritual penalty.
So on the numbers and what they mean, that is worth loosely discussing. If you've got a skill in our game at +1, it means you are absolutely terrible at it.
No, I think
if you have it up to about +5, you're still not that great. +10, you're now reaching the point where you're a journeyman. +15, you're now capable. +20, you are a solid veteran in that skill. You're pretty good. That doesn't mean that you have to be old to be able to do that. Some people are focused in their energy. Think about gymnasts, for example, who are Olympic level. They can reach that by the age of 14. So you don't need to be old to be able to take these high numbers. You just need to be someone who's dedicated your time. And if you are dropping numbers on your card sheet that pass +20 into +25 up to +30, you should think about your character's background in terms of what have they done to justify this. Now, for some characters, like say Gerhardt, all that means is he sat down, read it once, and that was probably enough. Because he's a goddamn genius. Where if it's someone who is, say, for example, learning a mental skill, but they have, on their card sheet at least, a very low intelligence, then you've got to look at time spent, study spent, what they're doing on a day-to-day basis to justify these high takes on their characteristics or their skills or whatever else it might be. So in our game, anything beyond +25 shows that you are a luminary. We've got a nice little table kicking in one of our book somewhere explaining all the different levels and what they mean. And yeah, we got a few characters go far beyond +30.
Remember you said we could get one free career change? Mm-hmm. Can I pick that to be my career change from Courtesan because I'm not going to complete the career?
Complete the career.
Well, I can't complete that career and still get into... If I complete that career, I won't get Mistwalker.
No, yes you will.
I don't think so.
Yeah, you will.
Okay, well, we'll see.
Yeah, you will.
I'll keep going.
I'm pretty sure you'll be able to get that.
To complete it? 3 at 15? Yeah.
3 at 15, yes. If you don't complete it, you won't be able to use the thing that you are probably later going to want to use.
Mysterious.
Yeah, good luck. Let's see if you do.
Well, so attractive's okay because I can use attractive to be my 3.
Correct.
So that's
and you're intending on increasing that to +4 anyway.
Exactly. Well, yeah, but we might not get there.
And intention is not necessarily.
And graceful for perform, we're gonna do.
You don't even need to take a second talent if you don't want to.
Yeah, but if I take grace, well, I need etiquette nobles because I have it.
I know.
And distract.
You need it for the story as well, and I would argue that graceful, taking once at 100 is definitely worthwhile.
For Baudlery. Yeah. It makes it cheaper as well.
What do you mean it makes it cheaper?
If it's the skill, it adds the skill to your careers. So if it's in
definitely.
Your career,
so if you're intending to increase it, wait until you pass that point.
No, because I had it already in the past. It was one of my 8 skills.
Yeah, but I'm saying if you're intending increasing it
again,
further. Yeah,
I will be increasing it further because I need to get it to 15.
Assuming that it's in the career that you're currently in.
It is.
Excellent.
Because I'm still in the board tree.
All right, I'm going to pop through our comments again. The trouble with Stone and Seal is that it's not available as a licensed PDF, so big eBay big bucks. Is it not licensed? Popped up. Oh man, that's really disappointing because we had a scan for that. Ha! I do apologise. That's not my fault strictly because I wasn't the one dealing with that, but I was definitely aware of it. that's very unfortunate because it's a great book. Yeah, that is a trouble. Sad to see that one executor. I didn't know that either, because I haven't really paid any attention to what's going on over on the PDF or indeed on the published book side of affairs at all. I've just been doing my own thing on the side. Alan says, thanks a lot. Not a problem at all, Alan. Kevin then drops in, it's one of the first edition books I don't own, as my brother has that one.
Oh,
yeah.
Get it off your brother.
It's scam it. That's what brothers are for, right? Oh, wait a minute. Sorry, Ali. That's my brother out there somewhere. I won't be stealing your books, honest. Oxford in LAWhammer is a typical NPC for townsfolk or whatever near completing second tier, so a watchman is at the top of tier 2 rather than the bottom. Right, so I don't believe there's such a thing as the top of tier 2. A lot of people think of completion of tier 2, or as in our game it's rank 2, as having plus 10s in it or some equivalent. The opposite is the case for my game. When you're in a career, there's no top or bottom. It's just what you're building on. And if we get ourselves, say, an old farmer who's been kicking around for some time, he'll have some skills at like plus 30 because he's been doing it all of his life. He's quite literally an expert in that. The attributes that he's got available will be boosted up quite high. So people who have been in their career for a long time will just have more. And it's not for me a matter of... Oh, pardon me.
I just remembered something.
What did you remember?
Do you remember in Sainsbury's before Christmas, there was those career toys, and I was like, and there was a traffic warden and an astronaut and a this, and then there was a leprechaun. That's not a career. I looked at them again today. I took a screenshot to show you. It's actually a farmer. It just has ginger hair.
And you called it a leprechaun? Wow.
Sorry, Dad.
Wow. So yeah, I wouldn't really view it as top or bottom. The minimums for the career are literally that. They're minimums. And whilst PCs might be chasing those minimums so they can complete careers, my NPCs aren't there at all. They're not thinking in those terms. They'll be taking everything that's available and developing the things that are available using their equivalent of XP as I'm building those NPCs up. In a way that makes most sense for them. So they'll be developing, say for example, they're in my game in rank 2. That means there's a total of 16 skills that they can draw from, which is quite a lot. And likely, most of them will be far higher than plus 10. If those are the ones that are important to that particular individual. There might be some skills in there that just don't match them. And that's one of the reasons why there's 16 and why there's a minimum of 8 to be chosen in the first place, because not all characters are going to have all the skills that are there as a bunch of options. So that's a relatively difficult question to ask because the parameters that you've arguably set don't quite match how I use them in game, but I hope that answers that question in a way that isn't just lots of spraff. So, Kevin then drops in, is there, if only there was some record of what happened in game. I mean, if only. Although in this particular case, the one that she did, it was, one of them was pre-stream. Second one was pre-stream.
Oh, well then it doesn't count, because pre-stream I might have had heraldry.
You
don't know. You don't know. You don't know.
Third one was a flashback. That was also pre-stream. So, most of the ones that she's done have not been done in stream.
I've been really careful since we started streaming to consult my notes, and if it says in my notes, Bob's heraldry is a skull, I'm like, well, that guy must be Bob, even if I know it's wrong.
Could ask the synopsers to find chapter and verse. Good old synopsers. They'll sort it all out. The synopsers are also aware of what I'm talking about when I say refer to the GM blog. It's good that it's not said to Gerhardt that he's a goddamn genius in game. It has actually been said to him by a couple of characters, actually. We popped up the Gerhardt side stream. He effectively received that very compliment from Dr. Flaster, who was exceedingly impressed with him for a variety of reasons. And once he had completed his doctorate, pretty much said it to his face as well. So yeah, it has actually occurred in game. Bless him. Drunken my stick iron lung. Oh my goodness, I don't know if I've said that name right. Hello everyone. Hello. Just popping off a moment at work to say that I hope everyone is happy and enjoying the night. Well, we certainly are at this end. We're having quite a bit of fun, actually. If you didn't know, and for those who haven't been here since the beginning, we're currently rejigging Alamennowyth's card sheet that she rejigged last night because she wasn't happy with the outcome. There will be a certain amount of bickering. There will be a certain amount of, no, I'm right, no, you're right, because that's half the fun of these things. Next will be the Drayman. Didn't know leprechauns were in Warhammer and allowed in the Bread College. I'm saying nothing, Drayman.
They're spikes.
Oh, man. Dark Star Nova. I watch a lot of Critical Role. Oh, good to hear. I have worked with the lovely people at Critical Role more than once, and I adore them. And even though I'm very new to Warhammer, you guys have become a must-watch for me also. Oh, that's so nice. Oh.
We did that at the same
We
time.
did- oh. The little tears in our eyes. Thank you very much for saying so. That's deeply appreciated. Oh, I'd just like to say as well, we've just passed the 800 follower mark
No way.
over on Twitch. So whoever it was who was number 800, thank you so much. Enormously appreciated. And if you happen to be out there and haven't pressed the subscribe button on Twitch,
Do it right now.
feel free to do so. Right, carrying on down. Drunken Mystic Iron Run. Not Drunken My Stick Iron Run.
Oh no, what is this one?
Oh.
It thinks this is a currency. I don't have £5 for composed writing.
Pardon? Oh, it's attempting to turn your stat into a currency.
And £50 for my actual.
That's a pretty good stat, £50.
annoying. Why do you
Drunken
do
Mystic Iron Lung, I feel particularly idiotic for not realising that as I read it out. I'm drunk and a smoker who happens to be a therapist, so that's the mystery part. That's a lovely combo as well. Thanks so much for clarifying that, and yes, I am an idiot for not realising the name there. Leprechauns. Steam Sage jumps in. Oh no.
Leprechaun? Oh, poor
Leprechaun.
Leprechaun. It's sad what happened to him.
Totally agree that you guys fucking rock from Drunken Mystic Iron Run. Oh man, it's gonna be one of those ones where I'm just gonna tear up like the child baby man that I am.
Okay, right, so take
Let's
a
stop
pause.
for a moment.
Take a pause.
Feel free to
from
ask
that.
questions while we're taking our pause as she asks her question in turn, which is...
It is. I better take Perform Dance because I did have it in Null.
Yeah, plus if you want to do well when you're at Non's Court, you definitely want to have some Perform Dances where it can get a little bit expensive, but fortunately your natural agility can really help that shine through. As long as you've got the basic
natural
steps.
agility.
Well, she's got pretty high agility, as I recall.
Let's have a look what it is in this current 48.
That's pretty high, given your average human at maximum can start at 40, trained at significantly up to 50. Okay, and that's your base standard, so you're
But
naturally
what-
very graceful.
But what 8 skills should I... Oh, play flute. I better put that down. What... Oh, well, I need to play flute higher, don't I? Because I've used it.
You have. I think it's fair to say that she's frequently said she's shit at it, though. So that's one that I don't feel that you necessarily need to take very high. I shall now quickly look at the comments. 72 Cran goes hello.
But she says she's bad at it like elves do.
Yeah, she does, but
She's
she's
bad
very
at it for
rarely.
an elf.
She's very rarely rolled. Yeah, she's bad at it for an elf, but that means that she doesn't have very many advances. But her number's relatively high because of her plate.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So another elf would listen to her and go, "Holy crap, she's like a child." Where a human listens to her and goes, "You know what? She's really quite good." Where the elf is sitting there listening to all those little discordances that they can perceive, going, "This is the frickin' worst." So yeah, I think that.
Why
works out
can't she
fine.
even climb a tree? I don't have climb.
That's all the way back
don't
at
have
one of our
climb
early
yet.
streams. She still doesn't have climb.
No, because
Hilarious.
last time I got it in my Elven heritage, but of course that didn't come this way round. It's only after she's done everything in Null that she ends up going to the Lorelorn and learning the basics of how to be a 5-year-old elf.
Yeah, totally. So carrying on, Kevin goes, "Are the leprechauns greater than trees?" I don't know, that
Is
tree
it a joke?
over in the corner, the tree.
Oh, the tree.
Yeah, that tree was pretty good in that episode.
Well, it's still out there. I can go and get it. I need some company.
One of the other side streams coming out, says Steam Sage. I'm porting them all up after this stream because I'll be porting this stream up as well. So they'll go up. I'll do a couple of the edits for those tomorrow. And then I'll go into Lorebeards where we're doing our Lorebeard stream on an introduction to Warhammer. And once that's done, I'll port the rest and we'll start the uploads. The uploads may take a wee while, so I'm hoping to see the first of them start arriving on the Monday. That seems to make sense. They'll go up for our all access folks first, and we'll probably start posting them a few days later, maybe a week later for everybody else. So all the remainder of the side streams should be done within a week or so after that. Okay, moving on anyway. Drunken Mystic Ireland says, time to get back to it. It's a shame to see you have to go. Love you guys. We love you too. The Dreamer comes in now. I wonder, actually, are leprechauns a thing in Warhammer? An offshoot of gnomes in Albion? No. I'm sure that they could be added with ease by someone at some point, and they will sit in one book and barely ever be seen again. Gnomes pretty much fulfill that role as well. Gnomes are quite clearly in Rough Night Hard Days, a book that's gone out of print and nowhere else. Will they ever pop up in any other expansion anywhere? Who can say? Games Workshop goes through periods of liking and not liking them as a species, depending upon who is sitting there in the licensing department, for example, for Games Workshop, and whether they accept them or whether they don't. They have their own orders from up high who say what sort of material that they want their licensees to be demonstrating out to the broader public, and sometimes it'll be very free. And the licensing department might say, yeah, anything that's been in Warhammer in the past can be in it again. So thus, gnomes pop up. Or alternatively, they'll say, no, we want it just to be the core stuff from the army list, stuff that we all know, which means that we'll go through a period where all those little extra things just disappear. Whether it's the odder creatures that were dropped from Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay First Edition, right down to the simple things like blood sedge, good old creepy plants are going to eat you, or something equivalent. Or whether they do get seen or don't, whether they get added to a book or don't get added. And you'll find there's also just different stuff that sticks against the desire for Warhammer to be something rather than something else with different people. So for one person who might be receiving the documents or the game or the whatever into the licensing department, they might look at something and go, yeah, that's totally Warhammer, I'm fine with it. For the next, they'll say, gnomes are the least Warhammer thing I've ever heard, they're never going to be added again. So the quick answer to that one is, it really depends on the era of Games Workshop you happen to be in and the individuals who are making the decisions. And sure, I'm sure you could make a fancy version of leprechauns if you desperately wish to do so. Fjord Focus, hey Fjord Focus, I've been watched all of LAWhammer over the past few weeks. Holy moly. Wow. I hope that was as much fun for you as it was for us playing it. And I can honestly say that I've never been so hooked so quickly onto an actual play series. Oh, thanks so much for saying so. You rock. We love you. You're the best. Do feel free to spread it to anyone else you think might be interested. Our actual play series, which has been technically somewhat of a roller coaster, as our lighting was off, our sound was off, our cameras were off, everything else was off. And when we started, it was super, super dodgy. We're at a point now where we've got some really damn fine mics up, but our cameras are still a bit rubbish. Largely because I've been costing out the cameras I want, and it's going to cost more for the cameras than it is to convert my bloody garage into a studio. The cameras are so expensive for the ones that we're looking to pick up. So that's why we have our Patreon. Our Patreon is literally nothing to do, really, with the individual streams or with whatever we post up there for rules or ideas or whatever. All that shit just goes out for free. Our Patreon is there for one reason only, and that's buying all the ridiculously expensive tech that we are so bad at rigging up in an attempt to try and make our streams look more professional as we game from our living room. We're getting there slowly. We hope that we've improved. Our sound has certainly improved. At least I hope it has. I have no idea how well this one's coming out, so we don't have a corner goblin in the corner. So let's just hope it's working well. But nevertheless, thank you so much for watching all the way through it. I hope you enjoyed it. We have a lot more to come yet.
Okay.
Let me just quickly turn back.
I want to hear the skills I've got at 15 from being in Courtesan.
Yes, what have we got at 15?
Okay, see what you think. Charm 15, Gossip 15, Intuition 15, Perception 15, Stealth Urban 15, Lore Null 15, Lore Heraldry 15, Perform Bodilry 15.
Pretty decent bodilry person. Love it. So she is now completed being Alamennowyth Courtesan.
I want to just...
Would that be correct? So at this point,
correct.
She's nearing the end of her time where she's living directly in Null. She's about to move over to the compound, where she's living with Cheetah, and the Marauders, Trott's Marauders. In the Trot Marauder, if you actually check, for those of you who are interested in what the heck we're going on about Trot Marauders, we've got a post up about the Trot Marauders over on our World Anvil account, and you'll find up there that Trot's Marauders have got one of their compounds over in Visenland, near Hendorf, and that's where she lived for a significant period of time. This is post-meeting and allying yourself with the Trot household.
Yes, which is after spending a sojourn with the High Elves in Altdorf, which we've never mentioned before.
Yeah, indeed, the High Elves up in Altdorf, which was fun.
It was wild.
Wild times in Altdorf. This is after the big falling out with Joros.
Yeah.
Indeed.
After we've made up.
Yeah, after you made up.
Well, sort of made up.
However, you can reference that. And to give you a big reward, he sent you down the sewers and had you doing that instead.
Yeah.
Which you had to do by commute because you were also living over in Hendorf.
It was also, and then I took a short career break to raise Silvio.
Indeed.
A couple of years.
For a few years, raising a kid, a human child at that. But you were doing that through the period when you were a sewer jack as
yes,
well,
I was.
because you were passing in and out for that.
I don't need much sleep.
Yeah, quite. So that being the case, we're into sewer jack.
Yes,
now
so
we can just port straight over. You don't need to do level 1. You can just port straight over from your level 3 career where you're into level 2, and skip past level 1 if you wish to do so.
Watchman.
Or you can move into level 1 if you wish.
I'm cool with going into Watchman.
Just making sure. Any reason you want to do the recruit?
It has the talent Hardy.
I see. That's where your XP may be hitting the bump boost.
Yeah, but I did have Hardy like a couple of times, so have used it. Like,
Your choice. You mull that one over. You can either skip from here over towards sewer jack because you were put straight into the sewer jacks, but that doesn't mean you don't have a period where you are effectively a recruit.
Well, then I would. If that was the case, then could I still take Hardy as part of my heritage and take attractive only when I go, because it's an either or.
If it's an either or, well, then why not do it that way? That means you could take Hardy then, and then take attractive when you move into. I think it's in Courtesan, or is it in Bod?
It's in Bod.
It's in Bod because it's using what the gods gave you the best that you possibly can.
Else.
As I recall.
The only other thing is Tenacious, which I've used quite a few times. But
you can live without Tenacious. It's on the endurance test.
Yeah. Drilled, Hardy, Strike to Sun. So I won't be taking Drilled or Strike to Sun.
I have so many desires to make a joke about being drilled. But
I made that last night.
I know you did.
Yeah.
And that's why it was sitting in the back of my head.
I'll just
alrighty,
check so I can get dodge.
You can mull that. While you're mulling that, I will go and quickly check the remainder of the comments on where we are. So, Nightright Space Sock. Oh my goodness, I hope I said your name right there. Good evening, and good evening to you in return. Very good to see you out there. Obscure drops in and says, I was in and out of the room last night. Can you explain again how elves have to do paths and learn all their skills so they end up longer in careers? I didn't quite catch the explanation last night. Oh. Yes, I'll be doing that. I'll be doing that when we are eventually arrive at the paths. We're almost there. Alamennowyth was basically a child, and elves, when they move on to the first path, it takes most of, at least in our game, it takes most of their younger years into effectively their equivalent of their teenage years. As they are drawn down a path, which is somewhat similar to a religion, and eventually lock themselves upon it.
Not a religion, it's a way of life.
And indeed, it is a way of life. And that takes time. It's not something that happens immediately, but she was a full-grown-ass adult throughout the entire course of that because she was someone who had lost her memories. So she was in a strange place where she was both an infant and a grown adult. So she was going through normal careers before she eventually moved into her path later. Most of the elves from our game would normally take their first career and first path at the same time. She is unique in terms of how that's been presented, and we did that for, well, on purpose. But yeah, we'll get onto the paths and exactly what it means when we get to her first path. And she nails that into place. So
I don't have row anymore. That's annoying.
Whatever. It's actually quite a useful skill. Steve says,
I've got it at 5.
I need a reminder of what happened. Ha 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 ha. I'm not quite sure what you need a reminder of. I'm sure it's something important. Mandatus Calum. I have so said that wrong. Mandatus Calum, perhaps. I desire to learn more about the gnomes. If you want to know more about the gnomes, go check Rough Nights and Hard Days. That was a book for Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 4. I wrote up the sections for gnomes in there. It was one of the more fun jobs that I ever did for Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, largely because I got to take something that had been in Warhammer from the very beginning and update it in a fashion that completely fit the modern view of what Warhammer was. I didn't have many pages to do that in, so I had to squeeze a huge amount in a very tiny little space. I also added a couple of extras over on the LAWhammer Patreon blog in terms of some of the other settlements and communities that are out there. So if you want to have a few extra gnomish communities, Nomi communities, you want to run by Ghastly, their natural language, then do go check over on the LAWhammer blog and just type in gnome into the search and it'll probably pop up in there.
I don't think it'll save me that much XP. Because there's crossovers.
Remember
the sewer jack has to be at 10, right? So the ones I got at 5, I'm gonna like sewer jack's only got 1.
It's going to save you probably a good couple of talent purchases. That's a couple of hundred. If you use the free career move to move from this one to this one, it'll be free to move over into the second tier. So you're going to have certain crossovers of skills here as well. Not many because they're quite a different skill set, but there's still going to be some over the 16 skills that you'll get from. Because remember, you get access to all the skills from the first career as well.
Which is Watchman.
Yeah, all the Watchman careers. That's why Watchman was listed on the sheet.
Not so I would do.
Not
Watchman.
So you do it, so that you could. So you'd have
I
the
just
skills
did it
to add.
yesterday.
Yeah, I figured you did.
Well, I had to. I thought I had to get hardy and tenacious because that's where
there's other ways around. So that will again potentially save some, but it's up to you. You go whichever direction you want. So if you want to know more about gnomes, that's where to go. Sweden, hey! Sorry folks, sorry for being late. Don't worry, it's a delight to see you here. We are currently rejigging the rejig of Alamennowyth because Lindsay decided that there's certain things that she wished she'd done differently. Or alternatively, she messed up, depending upon which language you prefer. Just saw the notification, great to see you here. And off like a bucket of prawns in the sun. Yeah, quite. These cameras seem just fine to me, says the Drayman. They are fine, but they cause us a host of issues at this end for a variety of different reasons. They are quite literally the cheapest that would do everything that we needed, except for the one that's opposite me, but it still keeps on, particularly when we're recording at a higher resolution than 1080p, which we're currently doing over on the corner PC. It is much fuzzier, there's certain issues with it, and we've been screwing with the settings and it's still not quite giving us the result we're looking for. They're good enough, but they're not quite what we're looking for the crisp, professional output that we could have. And that, however, is going to be somewhat down the line because we have a ton of other things that we need to buy first, as is often the case with these things. For example, our map cam, that's the camera that we use to view what's going on down in front of us, is terrible. That needs to be completely replaced. And sadly, the one that I want for that costs a lot. And I do mean an awful lot. So that one's been repeatedly held off because we've got a garage to convert. We've got other things to do as well, all of which cost money. It just sucks. Everything's so expensive, particularly because we're in the UK. I'm not saying that things have grown more expensive in the UK for various reasons, but they kind of have. Gosh darn it. Anyway, moving along. Several comments saying that the sounds are good tonight. Thank you very much. Stream's been rolling out perfectly, Andy. Corner Goblin would be proud. Delighted. Yeah, we made a couple of adjustments at the end of the stream from yesterday because we had some significant dips and we thought they were our fault. Turns out they weren't. But we nevertheless made those changes. And we're hoping that, everything turned out really well. Right, so carrying on from Zero Files, can confirm that the sound has dramatically improved at the beginning. Yeah, indeed, it really has, hasn't it? The issue only came up in terms of like the volume of some people's voices over others. That was often the case. Like, at least on my speakers, that is consistently the quietest. Yeah, we've done quite a few things to try and resolve that because...
It's because he's a leprechaun, he's so small.
Oh my God, I can't... I do not support said comments, Dan. We've done quite a lot. Now, we've done a lot of adjustments to our sounds because in our initial sound tests, Kath, for example, came out exceedingly quiet on a lot of them. So we made adjustments there so that her voice volume matched everyone else's. Dan's was going up and down in a variety of ways. Now, Dan has the joy of being the furthest out in the corner, means that he gets less pickup from multiple mics. We're still aware of that, and we've done a little bit of adjustment in an attempt to try and resolve that. Lindsay has a similar issue because she's on the far end and the other side. But there's a certain amount of deadening of sound from both of them because they've got cloth to either side of them to try and ensure that the sound remains crisp and doesn't have an echo. It has been largely but not wholly successful, and I agree, Dan does often come over the quietest. We've made adjustments, and we will continue to do so until eventually we're happy. Our mics are unlikely to change possibly ever now. We have spent a lot of money on them, and the mics that we've got are brilliant. The issues that we'll have with sound are now going to be entirely us-based, in that we've screwed up with setting them up because we're not that hot at the tech side of things. We're learning a lot as we go. Do we do it perfectly? No. Are we getting better? Slowly and surely, yes. But surely. Right, carrying on. The video camera on this stream is amazingly better looking as compared to some of the older ones, though. Thank you very much for saying so. And fascinatingly, on that, same cameras in almost every case. It's just we've learned how to use them better. Significantly better. That's been very much a technical improvement from both our corner goblin, who has made some significant advances in that front, and just for myself as I've gone through figuring out how everything works again and again and relearning and fine-tuning how it all goes. He for the man. Hey, for the man, just subscribed, you rock! Let me just see what you say. Now, you've got a relatively long comment, so everyone be prepared for me reading. I'm an old man over here. I don't have reading glasses. I hope I don't read it wrong. Hi, wanted to ask you a question. Not a problem. It's off topic. And long our friends did a few games based on the idea of being trapped in the Warhammer Fantasy. I wanted to ask you what you would do if you find yourself in the Warhammer Fantasy world. We did it with the rules of you have everything on you right now and you start in the geographic equivalent of where you are now. We started in Nagaroth because we live in America. Holy shit.
I've got a very quick answer for this.
If you want to know how we survived, we found our dark elf tastes were okay. Oh my goodness.
Oh my god.
Holy crap. Lindsay apparently has a fast answer. Go for it.
Andy's God. Like, I just stick with him. And he knows everything. He knows everyone. He can predict all their actions. We'd be fine. All good. We'd start in Nordland because we're in Edinburgh.
We'd start in Albion if you're
Nordlanders are lovely people.
That wouldn't be Nordlands, it'd be Albion. North of Albion. Yeah, I know. Our Nordland, indeed our empire, uses many Great Britain, UK would be better, I suppose, stereotypes to help embellish, develop, and further the Grand Provinces. This is something that I loosely discussed in Enemy and Shadows in one of the appendices. We were discussing accents and how you should best deploy different accents for different parts of your empire if you wanted to do accents at your table. And this was based off of long use of different accents, both for my writing for Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay and also at my tables as I was playing, whether it was at home or conventions or whatever. And our Nordland has long been strongly influenced by Scotland, particularly given Nordland's protracted issues with Middenland and Middenheim in particular. And in fact, it's been conquered multiple times in the past and has been a part of those provinces and has managed to gain itself its own measure of freedom past the enemy within if you run by canonical events, where we might not. We'll see where it all ends up. In our version of the game, it could end up almost anywhere. And all of our various provinces of the Empire have got influences, but they are weak at best. Our Talabheq land, for example, has got Irish influences all the way through it. And that shows in a variety of different ways. They are, however, just influences. They're enough to give us a cultural touching point, but not enough to say, oh, it's definitely just a fantasy version of that. Literally nothing like that. It's a fantasy version of a whole host of other things beyond that. As we all know, the core source is the Holy Roman Empire, but as we all know, most of us who don't live within the Holy Roman Empire, or indeed Germany, or wherever the Holy Roman Empire happened to expand out to, if you lived in any of those places, we don't have the same cultural touch points. We'd end up having to read book after book after book after book to find out the difference between those different German states. And we would never really get it right because it would always be secondhand knowledge. The stuff you know yourself is far better. And that's why the accent article at the end of The Enemy Within was, The Enemy in Shadows, pardon me, written the way it was. And it's also an influencer for most of the writers when they're out there. People write what they know. They find it very difficult to write stuff they don't know. And that is fine for while you're writing your background. However, that was slightly further than was required. On my side, to answer the question there from the Mad there, I've done this, actually, in a game. We didn't do it quite like this. We had our characters in a multiversal game that was based on Michael Moorcock's writings, using the BRP, Basic Role-Playing System, our adaptation of it, because I'm an eternal tinkerer of rules. And we had our characters encounter our players who were role-playing the characters. As much as that may or may not make sense. And then in turn, some of the players became characters. It was a very experimental, crazed session. And that whole role-playing session in general was in place as almost stress relief from the standard role-playing that we were doing. They were a bit silly, a bit over the top, but also super fun. And somewhat similarly to you, we used versions of ourselves that were directly related to what we were presenting at that point. Rather than start ourselves up in a way that was us, which was always going to be a little bit weird, because you would start having to limit things like your intelligence or your charisma in a way that could create arguments in a weird way. And who wants to say, no, fuck off, your charisma's too high.
Was Ali playing with you?
He was not playing with me. My brother was not playing. He was 4.5 years younger than me. Get out with it.
Yeah, you would have been really mean to him.
Yeah, almost certainly. It would have been awful. Big brother syndrome. So during that, we decided that we would organize our characters to a stat limit rather than rolling them. So people just basically chose the things that they wanted to be good at. And we discussed it all out before people started building them. So we built our characters. If we were doing something similar to Warhammer, I probably wouldn't even do that. I tend to find that the best role-playing sessions of that type are better being stat-free. In that you're better not doing it with character sheets or an equivalent. You're better telling a story with your friends around the table. Now, that might sound a bit weird to those of you who are not used to diceless role-playing. But diceless role-playing is not just good. It tends to be much more of the norm for some groups than many out there expect. There is a host of people who might do an entire session without rolling a single dice because it's their characters talking to each other. It's encountering something, it's doing an investigation, going over and speaking to somebody else, and they just talk it all out. Now, obviously, we're doing a live stream version of the game, so you tend to find that any of our interactions in game generally always come hand in hand with some form of charm test to see whether they make an impact upon the other character and whether that other character, the MC at hand, responds well to them in turn. But if you've got yourself a diceless system, you can do almost the same thing with just adjectives. This is someone who's charming, so I'm going to let them charm me. This is somebody who is, by their very nature, grumpy. So I'm going to respond to that as the GM and that character's self-described state. And that works really well for that sort of outcome. So if I was going to be playing a game like this, I would probably do diceless. I would probably bring them in Albion, contrary to her Nordland suggestion. And it would be a very silly story indeed, because obviously it is silly, but it could work.
I thought you meant like what would happen if it happened to us in real life. Like, where would I want to go? What would we do?
Well, it sort of was.
Actually.
They said a few games based on the idea of being trapped in Warhammer Fantasy.
Yeah, but I meant like actually, like if we've actually talked about it, because obviously.
Quite. If we actually, well, it's almost like actually going in, isn't it? Right, carrying on. We have quite a lot of comments, so I'm going to quickly zoom through these. It's not in English, don't worry about it. Always great to catch the stream live. Brilliant to have you there too. When you recreate characters, do you allow any endeavours for unusual learning? Occasionally, yes, we have done that. We have a slightly different broadening of the endeavour system built at this end, and we haven't used it that much. I did intend using it relatively heavily through Death in the Reich, because when I was planning Death in the Reich for the revised edition, we intended to have an entire section at the back of Death in the Reich about how to use endeavours when you're on the move. and I intended to do that during our streams. However, as anybody who was watching through the streams know, at the beginning of the Death in the Reich sections, I was beyond ill, carrying an infection from hell, to the point that I don't remember sessions, 8 through to about 9, 10. There is no memory of them really within my mind. And sessions from about 10 through to 11, 12, 13, they're really loose. It's one of the reasons the GM blogs tailed off there. I watched those videos again, been very surprised by some of it. They matched everything I expected, but nevertheless, it was still surprising watching them. So the GM blogs, which, as I said, were going to be popping up over the festive period, are ready to go in terms of ready to be written. I just haven't done it yet because over the festive period, I got ill again. Immunocompromised me sucks. So that being the case, we did intend doing that. I didn't do it because of the realities of the sessions that we have before us, and I would much rather just plow on with the story. But we will be using endeavors a little bit more, probably. I mean, if we take a look at the power behind the throne and what I plan for the Horned Rat sections, probably. I'll end it on that.
I'm not really sure how this has happened, but I've ended up getting here and like having exactly the same almost. I was on 5390 when I left Sewer Jack last time.
Mm-hmm.
This time I'm on 5290. So I've saved 100 XP.
I thought that might occur.
No, you said I would save more with Watchmen than 100 XP.
No, well, yeah, but you bought up another couple of things elsewhere. So the fact that you bought up those other ones and you completed Courtesan.
Yeah, I didn't complete Courtesan.
You didn't complete Courtesan first time. Meant that you should be way ahead. And by doing the skip, that's pulled it back and you're under. No, yeah, that's true. That's largely what I expected. Right, carrying on with the comments there.
Really for you.
Mandatus Caleb goes, good. I thought they were a joke until you so seriously talked about Be'lakor killing them off for being the Shadow Masters. I'm not quite sure what we're joking about because your last comment was a wee while ago. Oh, that was the gnomes, wasn't it? No, they're definitely not a joke. They are out there if you want to go check them up. Hey for the man. Oh, gifted the sub tier. That's really nice. Thank you very much. You rock. Carrying on down to Mandatus Caleb. Thank you. Thanks for the sub. Why didn't I have earlier? Yeah, it's super sweet. That was really nice. The Fate 2015, the Andy cam is the only one we all come for anyway. Excuse me while my head inflates.
Right. It's the only one I come from.
Moros, hi Moros, 1970 says, good evening all, good evening to you. If you don't know what we're doing, Moros, we are, well, not Juros. No, what?
The Andy cam's the only one I come for. Sometimes when you're away, I listen to the stream so I can hear you. I'm on to Spy.
Okay, so we're about to hit. You're not on to Spy. We're on to Spy and
Shadow Strider.
Shadow Strider, her path. We'll get onto that in just a moment because I want to quickly run through
separately, though.
Our comments. Well, so you dive into that while I quickly run through all these comments. Moros, if you don't know what we're doing, we're rejigging Alamennowyth's character. She rebuilt it last night. She realized she made some errors and she wanted to redo it one more time to make sure she got it all right. Potrak then gives subs to a whole bunch of people. Potrak, you rock! Thank you so much for doing so. I'm just going to say here, dance a little jig and say, you are the best. You are the best. Potrak rocks. You are the best. Darkstar Nova says, nice gifted subs. Subs, it was nice. Andy is God. The quotation from you earlier saying, Andy is God in the Warhammer world. Thank you very much for that,
the God above all gods. He even knows about the other gods.
Potrak would start in Nordska and would be dead.
Oh.
Not the best place to start, but having said that though, I've had quite a few campaigns in and around Norska, and it's quite a fun place, I think. There's a lot that can be done up there. There's a certain sad face over there.
Well, that's sad for him.
Swen says, have you ever seen Andy dance? You don't want to watch that. That's the worst. Damon goes, I'd be in Marienburg. I think I'd have it quite good, actually. Yeah, Marienburg's not too bad. It is the largest city in the old world, so you're going to have a whole host of health issues everywhere. And the potential of disease and various other troubles would be rife, but you're right. I think of all places, it's one of the better places you could begin. Roleplaying says, thanks to Potrak. It's because Potrak's the best. Draven says, as long as I don't get kidnapped by the cult of Stromfells, that would suck. Dastan Noah says, I live in Birmingham, UK, so I have no idea where you probably did not too far away from the Citadel of Lead. over in Albion. And yes, the Citadel of Len is a direct reference to
Yeah,
Citadel miniatures.
or somewhere in our empire, they would be somewhere.
Oh yeah, they would be elsewhere completely.
Nottingham, where?
Well, no, Birmingham.
Oh, Birmingham.
Birmingham. I've got quite a lot of family down Birmingham way.
That's not a Birmingham accent.
I know, the last bit wasn't. I didn't care. I just started off with it, Birmingham, and then I moved elsewhere. Anyway,
do you know, like, Birmingham makes quite a good Nuln, like the Black Country, all of that industrial heartland of, like, the cannons of Nuln, and it's close to Averland, which is Wales for us, and Birmingham's, like, not a million miles away from Wales.
And our Nuln has a very different character.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. Our does, yeah. But yeah, good point. And that's one of the things that...
Maybe Visenberg. Because, like, yeah, that would be quite good.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I strongly recommend for your games out there. If you're playing Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay and you're thinking of all of these individual places, try not to make them just all the same. Give them character. And the easiest way to start off giving them character is to go to what you know. If you happen to come from, say, France, you're going to have very different stereotypes what the different cities of France are like than I would if I was to say, oh, I'm playing a Bretonian game. My Paris will be, my Cologne will be Paris. And it would just break down because I just don't know France. But you do, so you could very easily do that. But if you're building your version of the Empire, again, use the cities you know to start off your building for what your world version of Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay is like. Anyway, moving on from that. Sven lives down in Austria. Yeah, in Australia, pardon me, you're in trouble. You're going to be in some made-up version of who knows what down there. Australia often gets forgotten. I'm sure that's going to be popped onto the Warhammer world at one point. There has been various references to other lands that lie beyond the waters in various books at one point or another. Moving down, Southern Wastes, Lumbria, yeah, all of these are very fair outcomes, potentially. More Australian 70 comes in the gamer's moment, quite. My intelligence is 4, outrageous, exactly. We don't need that nonsense. 72 Cram goes, I look forward to seeing how you do with endeavors in the campaign. Thanks. We've used a couple of endeavors in some of the side streams. So that, for example, was the source of the book that Gerhardt found himself with. And that became a core plot point throughout the course of the streams after the arrival of the book. And it significantly changed Gerhardt's character. And that had nothing to do with anything beyond a random dice roll from a table in the book. And I think that's one of the great strengths of Endeavours, that they can bring something to, well, in this case, not Endeavours, it was events from the Endeavour system, from the in-between sections. And I think that's one of the great strengths of the system, is that they can bring something new to the game that you yourself may not have considered. Those random tables are full of little gems that can hopefully bring something new to the table or to the story that you're building. We're almost done and about to move on to pass. Right, so we're just going to skip that one. Once Andy said inflates enough, we can paint him green and have our own Mars League. LFA 2015. It was enough for me to make myself the bloody Morsley emoji after being asked to do so multiple times. Let me just post that in the comments and just generally be bemused by it. Right, can I make that go away? Oh no, I've filled up half my screen with comments and I can't make them go away now. There must be a way of getting rid of OS. I don't know, I'll just carry on with the comments as I see them. Right, Portrait, yep. When Andy did the Dragon Children of Cathay, Dragon Kids stream was super fun for Lorebeards. Sotek put up a clip of Andy's face dancing for several minutes. Was great fun. Yeah, that was most certainly fun. Definitely. I'm really glad that he did that. Thanks, Sotek. I find it fascinating, the discussions of UK regions and accents. Yeah, the UK regions and accents was the basis for why I wrote the article, as I said, at the back of Enemy Shadows. And I do recommend, if you've got a copy of Enemy Shadows, do take a check. It's really short. It's only about a page worth of text. But it's just how you can use your own cultural touchstones to try and add character to your version of the Empire, or indeed any setting that you happen to be working within. Dark Star Nova says, my accent isn't as strong as the usual Birmingham one, as all my family are Irish. Yeah, that will definitely influence things. Yeah, a little less that can be said there. And I do believe I've done all the comments. We got there eventually. and I can get rid of my keyboard like so. That being the case, before I discuss paths, anything we need to discuss on this side?
No, I'm going to do Informer on Spy, then Shadow Strider, then Spy second level, then Mistwalker.
Well, they are going hand in hand at the same time.
Yeah, but I'm not going to complete.
Yeah.
I won't go on to Spy until I've done. It's easier.
You've got to do both and you change just once.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so let's discuss paths and how we use them in our game. And let's discuss what they're for. Let's discuss how they manifest. And let's discuss how she's going to be using our sheet as well. So we'll start off just simply with what Alamennowyth is currently doing. She has finished her time down in Nuln. There is a period where she then goes up to the Lorelorn Forest for almost 20 years. This will not be reflected on her character sheet because this part has yet to be played with her. She knows it happens. She knows the broad brushstrokes of what occurs up there and how well it goes down with her sister. Badly. And then she eventually leaves as the spy that she is and does a small tour of the Empire before eventually arriving in Altdorf, hitting our pre-stream sessions, and then eventually hitting The Enemy Within, Episode 1. She's on a path throughout that entire process. She doesn't leave Nuln until she's onto her path and she's moved into the spy career. During the course of this time, she's effectively a spy up in the Lorelorn, and then she comes down and continues that spying. Many think that she's spying for the Aeonir from the north. She is doing nothing of the sort. So, paths. Let's get started. I'm actually half tempted to grab my document and paths, and I can read out a little bit to you.
Before you do you think I should take Gregarious at all for her? Gregarious, others just like chatting with you. Once per day, you automatically gain plus Gregarious pieces of local news.
You've never used it, so I have no...
I have used it.
Have you?
But not when it was this version. I used it in the previous Gregarious, which wasn't...
Yeah, we just give you a little bonus. Yeah. But that can just be reflected with dice rolls.
Yeah.
So I'd be happy with you. I mean, there's nothing there that makes me go, yeah, you'd have to have that. So,
but break and enter I've definitely used. So I'm going to take that.
I'm half tempted to go grab that because it gives them a pretty good one. You will, however, be left with an empty.
Oh, shit.
Don't do it. You'll be left in Lindsay's very capable hands as she suddenly feels exceedingly exposed. So I'm going to go do that. So I'm going to be about, let me see, I'll walk through to the next room. I will find the document. I will then share a version of that document up online so that I can access it on my iPad. I will then download it over to my iPad and read out the bits that are important. So give me a moment. Take a look as I go at... where are you going?
I'm coming to the GM chair.
Oh, she's coming to the GM chair. Love it. So you can just look at there. She's coming underneath the table, so she's cheating.
This is how I move about this room. No one else does.
She is the only one who uses the secret paths, the places in between. The paths of the old ones that lie between the chairs. So, assuming you're moving through there, I shall now move out, pass over. You can admire Ralph Horsley's original art sitting behind me from Enemy in Shadows for the few seconds that it'll take for his head to pop up. I'm Alamennowyth.
Shut up.
I'm Alamennowyth, and I am here to say things of great import. Oh, the world is ending. Everything is going wrong. Oh, the end times. Oh, no. I lost all of my memories. Oh. Right, I'm moving on. Back in a moment.
I truly do walk in Ladriel's shadow. Or maybe it's Andy that does. This is a new seat for me. I don't actually know what to do. I'm gonna... Yay! Lindsay Cab is the one anyone comes for enemy. Hang on, I've left my scarves. Hang on, you're right. So, we had a secret Santa among the cast, and we did one of those sites, like where you have a list and you get to put in a wish list, and you can ignore the wish list or you can go for it. And for whoever got my secret Santa, they were just confronted with a wish list that consisted of literally like every single scarf I could find on that site that I liked the colour of. There was like 70 scarves on my wish list. And my Secret Santa got me this scarf, which I really quite like. It's quite light. And I think maybe they also got me this scarf, which someone else also got me. So I've got 2 of these scarves now. Yep. And then apparently the rest of my family and friends have also picked up on some kind of scarf habit. So I got this scarf. And if you were watching the stream yesterday, you will have seen that Kath was wearing a scarf which matched beautifully with her hair and her outfit. That was my scarf that one of my work colleagues got me. Thank you very much. You know who you are. I won't embarrass you by calling you out on this random stream. So those are all my scarves. It is quite hot in here. So I'm thinking that I'm going to need... I was watching... Andy and I were watching Dune again today. And I was noting that Jessica... Is Jessica her name? In the... his wife, well, his concubine, when she arrives on June, she has like a really, really, really basically a scarf outfit. And I want her scarf outfit now. I did say that to Andy. It is a pretty good film. And I kept on, no, not near June. The lady who plays her is Swedish, Rebecca Ferguson. Yeah, I think it's Jessica, the mum. Yeah, so anyway, she had a fantastic scarf outfit. So I was going to go to the gym when Andy was, but then Andy put June on in the background, and then I couldn't leave because every time I went to leave, like something so epic, I've seen it like before, multiple times, but something so epic came up on screen. I was like, oh, I'll just watch this bit. But unfortunately, spoiler alert, it was before the invasion of the planet, so my favourite character hadn't yet died, and so I just felt kind of sad and anxious all the way up to that moment, which I then left for. Anyway, that was my day, and then I did go out to the gym. Anyway, so I am on to Spy and Path of Shadows. So they're, I don't know if you guys have seen it yet, but they're like, Andy will explain it more. In how the path goes alongside Spy, but it's actually really quite useful to make Alamennowyth quite an all-rounder because she's got attributes. No, not Duncan the dad, my favourite space dad. They're all my favourite space dads, but he's my very special favourite space dad, Leto Atreides. Yeah, you do the paths alongside your normal career, so I can pick and choose from each one, but to complete Spy, I have to also have completed the parallel of Shadow Strider. So like Andy will explain it better than me, but it's really, but they both have attributes. The skills in Shadow Strider are slightly fewer, but the talents are the same amount. In fact, maybe even more talents. Yeah, there's 4 talents in Spy, the basic level of Spy Informer, and there's there's also 4 in Shadow Strider. It's just there's more either ors, so I'm gonna have to pick and because Path of Shadows is more of a spiritual side of her character, some of the talents in there, well, Petty Magic is obviously an arcane talent, but some of them, like orientation, where you know which way north is, and you pick a reason you know which way north is. Can you navigate by the stars, or do you have your own magnetic field? Can be more spiritual. So we were just talking about what that might be. Hello.
Hello. Alamennowyth has returned.
You can't be Alamennowyth.
Why?
You don't have enough scars.
Alamennowyth has returned. Alamennowyth has returned. Joros wearing Alamennowyth's face. Never a good start. Fuck that guy. Right, we swapping again.
Yeah. 72 Cram says you can't have too many accessories.
Accessories. Alamennowyth would agree.
Just basically pass the time talking about scarves.
And did you mention June?
Yes.
Yeah, quite right. I thought it was quite a good one. I'm moving right to the side.
Scarf outfit.
Yeah. Yeah, it's awesome. on the Rebecca Ferguson wares.
Exactly. I'm going through the paths of the old ones again.
As I said, you often go into the table there like that. Hope you're all enjoying yourselves out there. I certainly am, but then you can't see what I'm doing. So, right. I hopefully have access to the document now. I'll probably have to download it over to my iPad. I will say, though, that while I'm doing this, I won't be able to see any of the comments that are coming in, but I will quickly refer to it. So, if you have any questions you'd like me to look at, go check them and post them now, and I will get to them before I start reading the document. I'm about to shift on my iPad and go download it so that I have access to it at this side. I hope that this won't take too long. It's sadly a 50 gig PDF, which is slightly larger than I expected it to be. It's not a small one. I built the entirety of our careers as we use them at this side, which is actually, as it turns out, a really big doc. It's trying to download right now, and my little iPad is saying, "Don't do this, please." Here we go. It's in careers. So this is all our careers and all of our rules laid out for how we do it. And we do, of course, do it slightly differently to how it's handled inside Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 4. Because we have our own house rules. The whole point of Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 4, for those of you who've read the book, will be aware that it's got a nice little section about using house rules, about using optional rules, about ensuring that you use the rules that work best for your table, and that's largely what we've done. I will give an example of that directly here. For example, we have a rule called in-time practice. I'm going to read it out to you since I've got it right in front of me. Your character career defines the skills that you can purchase with experience points, but it's not the only way to increase your character's skills. If you successfully use a skill during play that is not included in your current career, you can purchase one advance in that skill by using in-time practice. The easiest way to record this during play is to mark a quick tick beside any successfully used skill during a session, or to write it on the back of your character sheet. In-time practice can be used between sessions, so as in at the point when you're not playing. It only activates between sessions right after a session where a non-career skill was successfully used. If you forgot to use in-time practice before the next session begins, the opportunity to use it passes. Using in-time practice costs 50 XP plus the normal XP cost for the number of advances you have already taken in that skill. So it's normal number of advances plus 50 XP. Note, in-time practice only applies to skills. It does not apply to characteristics or talents. So that's one of the many little side rules that we have kicking around in our game that we don't generally talk about that much. These will all eventually go up online in our blog. One of the reasons they haven't gone up is because we're constantly making small tweaks, and we don't want to put something up that just changes and changes and changes and changes again. We tend to put up a block, wait for a long time, then do another block. So that's that, which is a nice little difference. We're aware, obviously, that our talents as well work slightly differently. Talents in our game, if you've taken it once, you can increase it at any point afterwards using just standard XP, rather than only be able to increase the talents that are available inside your current career. Skills are handled the same way, though. If the skills aren't in your career, you can't increase them unless you use them during play, using the funky little rule that I just mentioned. So, yeah, that's super fun. Let's just skip past that because we don't need that. We're meant to be discussing paths.
By the way, I forgot I do need to take Gregarious because I'm on the path now, so I need to complete the career.
You have no choice.
Exactly.
Alrighty, so paths. Now, in my write-up for the paths, the initial section on it doesn't actually discuss what the paths are. It discusses why the paths exist in the first place. Exactly what they are. I'll read the little bitty here, which is the core introduction. I won't go into all the detail of the fall of Azurin, the War of the Gods, and all that nonsense, at least how it is reflected in our version of Warhammer. This is very much our game. This is not in any way, stretch, or form something that has been written by Games Workshop. It's certainly based on what they've written, and it uses much of the work that was perhaps put in place by Gav Thorpe, by Graham McNeil, by various other individuals. But it is an extrapolation of those events into a new cohesive whole, rather than something that has ever been discussed in any official book. This is our version of Warhammer, not the real one. So anyway, moving over to our little intro. There exists an immaterial realm of pure magic where gods, demons, and spirits wage an eternal war. Called the Realm of Chaos, the Divine Realms, or simply the Warp, this parallel dimension is woven from the hopes, fears, dreams, and nightmares of mortals, and is as limitless as the imagination. Of all mortals, the elves are most linked to this otherworldly realm, which they call the Aether. One of the consequences of their connection to this realm, or perhaps one of the reasons for it, is the intensity and consistency of elven emotions. The Aether reshapes around the extremes of emotion, so the elves, who feel more fiercely than any other, directly and fundamentally influence the form that the Aether takes. And this brings danger. Elven souls are brimful with unrestrained passions. These emotional excesses cause the Aether to churn and roil, resulting in a turbulent energy that is particularly delicious to demons. The basest denizen of the Aether, that's the demons that is. Indeed, elven souls spark with so much etheric energy that Slaanesh, the chaos god of excess, desires to devour them all. Such is that god's desperate appetite that Slaanesh is known as She Who Thirsts by the elves, a title that the god has borne since the ruinous powers first tried to destroy the mortal realms many thousand years ago. This attempt, called the War in Heaven, changed the elves forever. It was also when the first elven paths were created. So that's, loosely speaking, when the elven paths were created in our game, right at the very beginning. And to cut a very long story short, the very first elf on a path, effectively, is an Aryan, who ends up walking the path of Azurin, becoming Azurin under certainly one way of viewing things. And the intro text that we have for this is a quotation from the Book of Days by Finrear of Safi, or Finrear if you prefer that pronunciation. I often use Finrear in the Book of Days for its quotations because it's a good one, because the Book of Days from Finrear is almost a seminal text about what the elves have experienced at the beginning of time. And it's quite a long quotation. Do I want to read it? Why not? I'll read it. I'll read that little bit. I'll go back to the comments after I've read that little bit, see if there's anything worth immediately answering, then I'll dive back into this document. So the quotation is, our souls once burned free, but this summoned consuming darkness, and in our hubris we wrought ruination. After untold centuries of pain and loss, the first Phoenix King, now walking in the footsteps of Azurin, set us free. He taught us to erect walls by walking in the footsteps of the gods, to limit our experiences, to tread softly through the labyrinths of choice. Slowly, but surely, we learn to live again, and ever will, until the day we face Ranadandra, the end of days, which is the whole point of the Book of Days in many respects, from beginning to end. So I've done that. We'll quickly run over to the comments, see how many have come in. Fortunately, I don't know how many have come in. I'm going to presume very few. So the Dramon's got a little bit saying, I'm doing my own bit of world building, and I wonder if there's any good aspects to Stromfells. Anything it gives to as follows. None of the sources really give any. I suppose it's more a god to offer. Yes is the answer, and quite a lot, but I don't really want to get involved in that, given that we're currently sitting on the past stuff. But that's definitely something to potentially consider with lower beards. Although it's not really a lower beard thing, because it's going to move beyond what Stromfells offers in terms of the canonical version of the god. But in terms of developing it further, most certainly, definitely yes. Moros drops in with a quick, will we ever see LAWhammer rules master document, or is there much overlap with copyrighted official material? That's the issue. Our rules are house rules, which means they rely upon the 4th edition of Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay as the core. And we've obviously developed significantly beyond that core, and we've gone in a host of new directions. All of our talents are rewritten, our skills are all rewritten, our spells are all rewritten, our divine prayers are all rewritten, so everything is definitely new. But we nevertheless still cross over many a copyright barrier. That being the case, we are not producing that copyrighted stuff up. So our version of the rules that we have, which is a complete rewrite of basically Fantasy Roleplay 4, but for our game, can't be posted online because it would be a direct challenge to Fantasy Roleplay 4. Go buy that game instead. But we can pop up a variety of our house rules. House rules are fine. We've always allowed house rules up online. It's been a constant part of what Warhammer is. The core rulebook itself says to do this, to figure out the rules that work best at your table. So that's fine. We're happy posting them up. But we prefer to post up complete sections, complete chunks, rather than bits and bobs here or there. The core rule that we use are almost exactly the same as the core rules used inside the actual rulebook. We're using what is the Fast SL options. Instead of calling it SL, we call it successes. We have a change in advantage, but in terms of the base system, that's almost it. We are using almost entirely the core rulebook as written, the rules as written there. So we're playing Warhammer in more ways than many people expect. But when it comes to all the applications of the rules, all the extra gubbins that go around it, that's where we've got some significant changes. So, yeah, there are some difficulties with copyright. Let me just double check if there's anything else down here. So, Storywright says, so is there a path per elven deity? Yes. Would there be a lot of overlap between Loak and Ladriel in terms of the paths? No. Significant differences. Obscura says, do Azrael, Azarian, and Druki all follow paths? In our game, yes. Although each of them follow them in slightly different ways. Not quite true. The Azure, the Aeonir, and the Azrai largely follow them as it. They even do. No, the answer is simply, as far as the rules are concerned, yes. The Dreamer pops in, perhaps lower breeds of smaller world gods, Stromfell, Shalian, Morn, Urson. Yes, that's almost certainly going to be the case. We've already done Myrmidia, for example, where we did that for one of our lower beard episodes. Moros pops in complete sections like stress document, which is also, by the way, understood. Yeah, absolutely, Moros. And that's the general plan. Having said that, though, the stress document as it currently stands, I found it a really useful exercise, but I found that in play there's too much faffiness involved. So you'll notice that at our table, we don't use stress all that much. We are almost certain to develop that a little bit further as we go on. But as it stands, I find them as a rules and yet another meta currency, not an issue. They're not that much to carry. It's the getting rid of them and the impact they make. I'd rather they did less than they currently do with similar larger outcomes. But we can get onto that in another day. Right, moving on down. Well, not really smaller, just not the main one. Sigmar, all right, the lady as such. Yes, absolutely. Quidane pops in with thinking back to something that came up in the streams. Do your elf souls form into crystals naturally, or is this something that has to be done to them upon death? It's not so much natural, but they all carry their way shards, which their souls will slip through. It's all attached through to the big network. There's a whole thing going on there to attempt to avoid their souls slipping into the aether, where they are going to be in extreme danger of being gobbled up by demons. There are ways in our game that won't be the case, particularly if you're lost on your path, where your soul is so intrinsically linked to one of the gods by that point that your soul will just slip into that god's aegis, so to speak, that god's influence, the sphere of influence, so the demons can't squeeze into that. If you wish to view it in a more, let's say, metaphorical route, someone who's lost on their path will, upon death, move into the realm of their god, meaning that she who thirsts, who lies out with that realm, would literally have to invade with her demons, doing all of her crazy nastiness over on the warp side, on the aether side. So it's not as simple as the crystal route, so to speak. There is more going on in our game, at least. But broadly speaking, that is most certainly the grounding point. Right, carrying on. Where were we? Thinking back to something that came up in the streams. Do your elves... I've already done that one. Storywright says, as a mechanical write-up, are the path structured the same way as career levels? Yes, they are identical. I'll get onto that in a second. They're not identically handled, but they're written in an identical fashion, except I put elf runes in instead of using crosses and comments and that sort of nonsense. I mean more a single stream which touches on all the smaller ones. No, we will almost certainly be doing them individually, not just doing one for all the small gods. We managed to get an entire stream out of just Dragon Ogres, for example, where there's really only about 2 pages written about them. But oh my god, that stream turned out to be pretty damn awesome. Zar Nagarund, for example, we managed to do an entire stream about, and Zar Nagarund has only got a few sentences written here or there about it. But as it turned out, that became a really good in-depth stream about the Chaos Dwarves and who they are. That was super fun. So it's much more likely we'll do one per god. Right, moving on, story right. If a human were to adopt a path to Mount Meridia, would that look just like the cults as they stand? Meh. I mean, it's just not how they would do it. Humans are psychologically different, as we will discuss probably. Story right, or any other god, thanks to the mini dive. Sorry for interrupting the cardigan, Lindsay. Not a problem. That's one of the reasons for this stream.
No,
was
this is fine.
We were aware that Lindsay would be mostly just sitting there doing maths and figuring out her career. So this is exactly what the stream's for. 72 Cram says, I can't remember which book I read it in, probably Soul Down the River, but why do elves hate Stromfell so strongly? Is it because of their nautical dominance? I read that they assisted that following him is punishable by death when they made their deals with the Wasteland. Yes, largely that. Yes, there is more going on than there, but Mathlan Manan is an important god to the elves of the Outer Kingdoms. So that's what many, I would argue, give a misnomer of sea elves to. They're basically high elves. And that is a god, an entire way of life that is antithetical to their way of life. And to not try and stop them would be as impossible to them as transgressing their paths, as we are discussing just now. Most of them are on path of the mariner, as we refer to it for those who are the seafaring ones. And the path of the mariner stands against that. They have to act. We'll discuss the strictures and how they work on our paths when we get there. Honestly, one per god sound means more lower beards. Yeah, indeed. So it's a win anyway. Indeed, it does sound more that one, Draymond. Madness Kalen pops in with Zarnagrim was a wonderful stream to watch and ask questions in. If you haven't watched it, please do so. Thanks very much for saying so, man. It was a super fun one for us to be involved with as well. Right, I'm going to go and dive into the document again. No idea where it is because I've now gone and closed it off. I'm going to assume if I pull down like that, it should just appear. It didn't. God damn it. Okay, so I'm going to have to go back and do that and make my Gmail open up again. There. There it is. Right, let's scroll through all this crap and get
I
into
still don't have enough stealth.
I gave you 3.
Yeah, but I need 4.
You and your stealth. What have you got stealth of?
Urban, underground, rural, and ether.
Well, yeah, you're right. I didn't give you enough stealth, so you have to write to the bottom. We can do that later. Right, so our paths. The path background that I've got here goes into the War of Heaven, and that's when the gods are warring against each other. It's when the Chaos gods rebel and go to town on the Warhammer world. The old ones disappear for one reason or another. The gods war for some time, and that war eventually comes to an end. The Chaos gods themselves, according to this version of the background, are literally walking the Warhammer world. They are yet to be trapped beyond in the aether. And it's Azurin, according to this particular story, that does indeed do that, limiting the Chaos gods massively and fundamentally in terms of how they can impact the Warhammer world. This causes them to scream in fury in a variety of different ways. Significantly changes the Great War, but because all gods are banned from the material realms, not just the Chaos gods, all of them are kicked out. Except for Ladriel and those who can manage to squeak in through some other fashion or other. That changes the world significantly. The war rages on and the elves almost come to an end, as we know, and eventually Azurin, approaches Azurin, the king of the gods, and says, we need you to come back. Gods, we need help. We're about to all die. And instead of coming back, he doesn't break his own rules. He effectively possesses Inarian, and creates the first elf who fundamentally is changed by the gods, and shows a method of allowing themselves to escape from the depredations of chaos, from the pleasure cults, from et al. Through the course of what effectively becomes later on the paths. We have a nice little bit about the different divine factions in there. We've got a bit about the Kadai. That's the heavenly host that at that point, because Azuran gets killed, is led by Kurnos. We've got a nice bit about the Cyrathi, however you want to pronounce it, and that's the underworld host and what they're doing, and the Kaodai, which is the chaos gods and what they're doing, and the Yenlai, which is the harmonious host. They're the gods that want to have nothing to do with the war and what they're doing too. A nice little bit there. So, cut a long story short, that's that. We have paths. And I'm going to read the opening part to this as well, so that we get an idea of what it's about, because it'll make it far easier than me just rabbiting on. I'll read this bit. I'll do a little bit about gods and mortals as well. I'll come back to the comments, catch any comments there. Then finally, we'll come back in again and explain the rules for it. So, Elven paths are rigid codes of behavior that elves follow to manage their emotional extremes and conceal their souls from she who thirsts, Slanesh, the chaos god of excess. Elves are highly sensitive and magical species that keenly feel every emotion. Elves intensely experience each moment in their lives, leaving them in danger of being overwhelmed by a maelstrom of uncontrolled passion, even when encountering the seemingly banal. Elven paths teach methods to moderate this, following fixed routes of action, allowing elves to manage their flaring emotions. Each of their paths rigorously adheres to the teachings of one of the elven gods. Because of this intimate divine connection, the paths also hide elven souls from the ravenous demons seeking to consume them by bringing the elves closer to the god whose path they follow, which grants a measure of protection in the divine realms. Imagine, if you can, each of the gods as a big shining bright light. So let's say there's 20 lights for 20 of the gods. And elven souls, if they're not following a path, are just a whole bunch of extra starlight sitting outside. And the demons look over and they go, I'll avoid those big, huge, glimmery lights, that's the gods, and I'll go swimming over and grab these little lights because they are super tasty and I can see them. By following a path, you move your light inside the big burning light of one of the other gods, meaning that you are effectively blinding those demons from being able to see your soul. By rigidly acting in the fashion that god demands, by effectively, if you want to go with very old Warhammer lore, by effectively acting in the emotional state that creates that great maelstrom in the warp, if you prefer, you get closer and sucked into that maelstrom, meaning that you are far beyond the capabilities of the Chaos Gods with their own maelstroms to impact upon. Where all the ones that are lying outside the gods are, because the elven souls are so bright in the aether, very easy for demons to go and pick up. Now, when the elves are young, their souls are significantly less bright. Their souls, if anything, are flickering flames burning into life. And as they get older, the souls get bigger and bigger until they reach the point of humanity and then get even further and beyond them. And that's when they need to be starting their own paths, according to the LAWhammer version at least, because they are now becoming a danger to those around them. Indeed, for some elven souls, particularly those who are going to be extremely magically, let's say, influenced, their souls may burn very bright very early, meaning that they need help on their path almost immediately to try and help contain themselves in a fashion that means that demons will not be pursuing them. Demons do not like elves in our game in terms of what they represent, but do like to eat them. And they are, as we noted, super, super tasty. Anyway, moving on quickly. Naturally obsessive, elves dedicate themselves completely to their paths, captivated with the tiniest minutiae of how they should interact with the material world around them. This leaves them almost incapable of acting in a way that contradicts their chosen path. However, for all this extreme concentration brings many benefits, it also comes to dominate, pushing the elf ever closer to the emulated god. Normally, elves pass through many phases of their life, moving from one path to another as they age. However, some elves become so intently focused upon their chosen way of life that they become lost, rooted, or settled, different terms used by the different types of elves that are out there. Such elves can no longer leave their paths. They enter a new phase of their lives where they become so dedicated to following in the perfection of their god's footsteps that they never stop. These elves become akin to clerics, eternally consumed by a single god's teaching, demonstrating the way of their paths to others. They effectively become elven priests. They're stuck on the path. Any of you who know your 40k lore will see there's a lot of similarities here, and that is relatively purposeful. It was a response in many respects to many of the Eldar or Eldari elements that were added to the elves, particularly during the course of the tail end of Warhammer. And realizing the difficulties that brought, it was important to try and balance that out in a variety of ways, particularly when She Who Thirsts started thirsting for them like mad. That needed to be justified on the rule side in our game. I'm also going to drop a little bit here about Gods and Mortals. This is one of the little side panels because it's a relatively fascinating little insight into where things are sitting here. So, as emotional elves interact with the mortal realms, their innate connection to the aether has lasting repercussions. Every emotion an elf experiences energetically churns and reshapes the infinite potential of the aether. And when an elf follows a path, this reshaping exactly matches the disposition of one of the elven gods. According to elven tradition, this harmonious etheric energy empowers the elven god in question. The more elves that walk a god's path, the stronger and more determined that god becomes. The elven gods can then use this additional swirling strength to protect their children. So, the elves empower their gods by emulating them. And in turn, the empowered gods can protect the vulnerable elves that sustain them, forming an eternal reciprocal cycle of mortal and divine give and take. For those that learn the myths and legends of this circular sympathetic relationship, two profound questions almost immediately arise and have long been the focus of debate for scholars of the Elven gods. Number one, in the past, did the extraordinary intensity of Elven emotions influence the Aether, eventually causing the birth of Elven gods in the divine realms? Or, two, did the gods create the elves, fashioning and shaping them in their own image according to their needs? According to the elves, the answer to both of these questions is yes. So, enigmatic nonsense aside, let us ping over back to the good old questions.
It's going very well here.
Okay, you run out of XP?
Yeah.
Figured that would be the case.
And I didn't get some of the things I got yesterday.
Damn it, even though you ended up reaching the same, because there've been a slightly different mix of skills that you have in place, so slightly different.
Yeah, because I completed Courtesan.
Anyway, so, but you're 100 XP ahead, depending how you look at it.
Pardon? So,
how badly is it going? Before I dive into these comments.
I've ended on 8685.
Okay.
And I need luck 2 and attractive 4, I think.
Oh, you're close then.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're pretty close. Right, so I'm going to jump in the comments.
Less of skills somehow.
Go check it up. Double check everything.
And I don't have sleight of hand this time. By the way, it's not on my skills.
How did you miss it and get it last time?
It used to be in Spy, maybe, but now it's not.
Yeah, no, it moved over. Yeah, that's a mess. You won't get it. Right, so Leffy says, aren't all gods really Ladriel anyway? No. So all paths are really just the path of Ladriel in that case? No. I mean, jokes
There's
aside.
A big distinction there.
Yeah.
All material influences. Ladriel's the only one that stayed behind from the Elven gods and maybe a few others.
Yes, so when Ajuran in our version, according to Elven tradition, banished all of the gods from the material realm, Ladriel was the only one given dispensation to stay behind. For whatever reason. She was, according to this particular story, his consort. The Queen of the Gods, you could argue, or the Empress of the Gods, you could argue. She and Ajuran were certainly like this, and Ajuran had been begged, pleaded, seduced, a whole host of other things by the other gods, particularly the Cyrathi, in their attempts to try and stop his banishment of the gods from the material realm. And he spurned them all, much to their extreme dissatisfaction, to the point that some of them effectively declared war on him. And Ladriel is just different because of this, because Ladriel is not inhabiting the Aether per se. So that's super fun. Anyway, moving on from Executor, how would you handle cover careers for someone in the spy career or for NPC cultists posing as another career without tempting my players to want to multi-class the career system? That is a question for another day, and I think it's a really good one. If I don't answer this in any stream at any point over the course of the next couple of weeks, call me up on Discord, because that one I will end up wanting to wax lyrical about for a good far too long, and I'd rather stick on just the path stuff because we're nearing the end of Lindsay building her cart sheet here. Ryan, I'll be rattling around the real world, absolutely. I'm saying nothing about that one. Sweden comes in, hey, I'll put Lorby's topic request for a compare contrast of Loek versus Ronald. That'd be an interesting one. Moros comes in, so mechanically careers and paths run in parallel. How do they interact with each other? We'll get to that in a second. Paths restrict which careers can be taken? No. But kinda. Careers must be finished to progress in paths? Yes, I'll get to that in a second. Andy, thoughts about archery, black powder cannon, and castle design? Oh my goodness, that's quite a different one. Or is this something better for lower beards? It's something we can just generally discuss at various points, but certainly not on this stream since we're nearing the end. Sweden then pops in, for I feel for Lindsay, optimization problems are not my favourite. They are also not mine. So I will bring up the last bit that we're going to discuss for the paths, which is, loosely speaking, the mechanics of how they work in practice. We've got the idea of where they came from the War of the Gods, from Slaanesh's great desire to eat those souls, but it's not just Slaanesh, the Chaos powers in many respects I appear to have gone into entirely the wrong program there. Let me just open it up properly. I need permission? What? How do I need permission to my own account?
Nobody knows.
Let me just double check what's happened there. There we go. Silly old Google Drive there. So we're aware of where they came from. We're aware of how they, loosely speaking, work, in that the elves so closely emulate one of the gods that it protects their souls, because by acting like that god, it moves their soul into that god's sphere of protection. That's a very out-of-character way to loosely describe what they're doing. In terms of the rules themselves, I just very quickly work through the walking on the Elven Path rules. I won't read them all out because we'll be here for a wee while because there's a few things to mention. But broadly speaking, the rules discuss what the Elven Path is. They then discuss how to choose your Elven Path, which is much like choosing a career. Go read it. Find the one that suits you best. And for elves, it's quite important that you do choose one that is appropriate, because you're going to have to stick with it. In particular, the strictures. And we'll discuss the strictures that she has, for example, in the Path of Shadows. Because if you broke those strictures, you have broken that your
Cover.
Basically, yeah, you've broken your cover. That's a good way of putting it. And you are no longer underneath the aegis of that god's protection. Demons are coming, and it's going to probably be nasty, because it's time to start devouring your soul. And it's not necessarily going to be obvious, because these demons, many of them will be working from the etheric side. Now, if you roll very badly, they might literally manifest to chew you up. That's actually relatively rare. Most of the problems lie on the other side. So advancing through your path, this is one of the important parts. Your path is directly tied to your career. So basically, it's just another career. You've got your Elven Path career, and you've got your career path career, so to speak. And when you're in rank 1 of your career path, you're in rank 1 of your path. And to start a new path, you always start at rank 1. So that's the very first career in that one, and you start your path at the same time. And when you're on a path, you have to take every single attribute, characteristic, skill, and talent option that is available for you in both your career and your path career. So each one of the paths, if I just pop them to one, has got 1, 2, 3, 4. Is it 4? 1, 2, yeah, 4 skill choices. And I think it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, yeah, 3, 4, and 4 talent choices, just double checking. So 4 talent choices. So that basically adds 4 skills to each of your careers. So in your first one, that's 10 skills, plus an extra 4 choices as well. So that's a total of 14 choices. And then your talents, that's 4 talents, plus a further 4 from your path. And you have to take every one of them. Now, if there's an option, so say, for example, one of the Path of Shadows, her first one is Beneath Notice or Seasoned Traveller. She can choose one of those two. She doesn't need to take both. Her second one is Nose for Trouble or Petty Magic Shadow. So she can take one of those two. Her third choice is Silent Step. She has to take that because there's no option. And the last one is Strider Any, the ability to move through various terrain at better speed. Again, she has to take that. There is no choice there. So that's the 4 talents that she has available. And similarly, on the skills side, she's got ranged, bow, or thrown. She has to choose one of those. Language, local, or magic. She has to choose one of those. Navigation, she has to take. And stealth, any. She has to take 1 stealth choice as well. Now, it's quite possible that she may have taken them from the other career, and there is a certain amount of overlap, and that is fine. If there is overlap, you only need to take it once. So, loosely speaking, she has herself a total of, in rank 1, 14 skills to choose from, but because many of them are they've got options, there's actually about 20 skills to choose from. She must take a minimum of 14 to finish off her first rank 1. Don't think of them like 2 careers. Think of them as one bound together, because that's loosely what it is. And she has to finish rank 1 before she can move to rank 2, and that's with both her career path and her actual Elven path. That's why she's currently struggling over there. She's deciding which ones to take at various points.
And if I don't take Shadow Strider talents now, I'll never be able to get them.
For example, yes. Yeah, absolutely. You'll be beyond then.
Yeah. So I'm going to ditch Seasoned Traveller as we discussed.
Yes.
Because I forgot that we had discussed that yesterday. And I'm sort of like Nose for trouble. I have used it, but I've also got empathic, so a certain amount of nose for trouble could have been just
Yep.
good rolls on intuition.
Yep,
if
I'm
you're
happy
fine
with
with
that.
Yeah.
Yep, totally am. So, how do you complete your rank? We've discussed it already. You take everything at least once, every option at least once, every characteristic at least once. And that's when you can then move on. Of course, you can take more if you wish to do so, because that's the nature of Warhammer. You can always increase things further. Say, for example, there's a particular talent you want, you could take that. If there was an either or, you could choose both of those either ors. That just means that everything slows down even further. When eventually you reach the point of being able to increase your career, you can't change career path. You're stuck in your career path, which means her point, where she's a spy, she can't go to another career. She's always a spy until she completes the spy career, and we'll discuss what that means.
But not every Path of Shadows person is a spy.
Correct.
It'll be whatever they are.
It's whatever it is. They might be an investigator. They might be a wanderer of some sort. They could be a warrior of some sort. Many on the Path of Shadows, for example, would be like Way Watchers, or they might be Shadow Striders. They could be anything, a variety of different careers. The career is tied to your path, and then you're stuck on that because you are stuck on the path until you complete it. And you can complete it. We'll get to that in a second. So let's just roll through all of that. Completing your 2 career summary. That's largely what we've discussed already. Changing careers. When you've completed your 2 careers, the 2 individually, you can then move on. You must move on to the next career. You do the normal experience cost for changing career within your career, but you'll notice that for LAWhammer career paths, there's often multiple branches. For example, the spy career has its main branch, which is, she's got it over there. In fact, if you pass it over here, can I have it? Oh, you haven't got it all there. You've only got
Paid for etiquette noble twice. Hooray!
Oh, well done. Let me just find spy here since I have it. So the spy career starts off at Informer, rank 1, goes to Spy rank 2, Handler rank 3, Operative rank 4, and Spy Master rank 5. But it also has a rank 3 career called Intelligencer with a rank 4 called Agent. It's got a rank 3 called Hitman with a rank 4 called Assassin. It's got a rank 3 called Cryptographer. It's got a rank 3 called Infiltrator and a rank 4 called Saboteur. And you can go into any of those because they're all within the same career path. You're stuck within the career path, but you're not just stuck in that little spy part within the career path. You can go to any of the individual branches. So you have to stick within the career path until you complete it. What counts as completing that path? Let me just read that bit out for you, because it's right there. If you complete rank 4 of an Elven path, you can now leave the path, assuming you can find a teacher for the new path. This is the only way you can change Elven path. If you do not wish to change your Elven path, you can now move to a new career path and stick with your current Elven path. So, for example, stick with Path of Shadows, but now move to a new career. If you do that, you have to go again back to rank 1 of the new career, whatever it may be, and then just keep on going. That, however, doesn't change your Elven rank. Your Elven path will always be at 4, because that's what you've reached in that. And you just start working through your second one, taking again everything within that until you hit again rank 4. And when you hit rank 4, you're again at a point where you can decide spiritually you're ready to change path. Changing path, however, is something that is quite literally fundamental to an elf. It means a complete change in your lifestyle, in who you are, and everything that is involved with that. And changing that, it's got a little bit here, changing Elven paths, is always handled in downtime, using the changing path endeavor. This is a step that should never be taken lightly, as when successful, you lose every talent you have. All of them. No matter where they came from. You're effectively restarting your life. You discard your previous existence completely to take on the new path. Further, you cannot gain XP when you are changing paths, and that can sometimes take months of game time. It is a fundamental change for the elf, and when the elf is met again, that elf will be simply different. Their character will change because they will be moving from, say, Ladriel in the Path of Shadows towards perhaps, who knows, Eldrizar, or it could be, I don't know, who else? We moved to Cain, holy crap. That'd be a completely different elf. And they're now working to completely different strictures. Their life is moving to a different way. They move on to the path of the Mariner. they're again going to be in a completely different place. Their mindset will be far more open and outward thinking. Think, for example, Finnebar the Seafarer, who in our version of the LAWhammer is on the path of the mariner, even though he's in a position of command, and he should arguably be in a completely different path. And that has fundamentally changed the elves themselves, who have become, the high elves at least, far more outward thinking than they were previously under their previous Phoenix Kings. And that's because, in our version at least, we have ourselves a Phoenix King who is strongly influenced by the path upon which he walks. So, yeah, you can change your path if you wish to do so, but it's a big fundamental change. Or alternatively, you can just stick with your path and move to a new career as you work from rank 1 all the way up to rank 4 again. You, of course, have the option of moving to rank 5. Rank 5, for example, in the Path of Shadows is Greyfarer, but if you move to a rank 5 in a career, you're stuck. You can't move on, and you can never change paths again. You are there forever, and you effectively become a priest of that particular god as far as elves are concerned. That is loose language. You often see the words priest of the elves, and then you realize what that is in practice, and it's not really priest as most of the other species determine it. But in our case, that's our level 5 of that particular career. And then finally, you've got level 6. Level 6 is the avatar of that particular god. For example, if you happen to be on the Path of Life, the avatar on the Path of Life, she who is at level 6, is Ariel. That's it. There's only one on that, and there only will be unless she happens to cark it or move on somehow spiritually, allowing someone else to move into that. Level 6 on our particular Path of Shadows is Joros of 1,000 Masks. Quite. That is just for those of you who managed to survive this long in a crazy character building stream. And that, in many respects, is why he was chosen to be Alamennowyth's mistress, because...
He's the best.
No, it's not just that he's the best. Her soul was in such a turbulent state after having been on a path for almost, 4,000, 5,000 years and unshifting, that it required someone with extraordinary influence to try and hide her soul from the depredations of those that would attempt to, let's say, claim it. So that's super fun. I'm going to end before I move over to the comments on the strictures that she has to live by. And you have not been aware of what she's trying to live her life by. If she crosses any of these, she's in trouble. A lot of trouble. And has it happened before in the past? I'm not saying, because she doesn't know either. But does it have an effect upon her character? Yes, it does. It does things at the base level of corruption points. But beyond that, her soul will literally start being eaten.
I thought you said I literally couldn't do the things.
Yeah, we changed those rules. Because it's too easy to not do a thing as a player.
Why did you change those rules?
Because it's too easy to not do the thing as a player.
You told me that.
Yeah, it's more fun doing it this way. All right, strictures. Aid those who are lost. Because Ladriel, in fact, before I do that, let's have a little read up on Ladriel herself. So that's the aspect of Ladriel the Mistwalker, which is the Path of Shadows. You slip through the shadows, silent as a whisper, alert, prepared, ready to strike without mercy. So Ladriel, the Lady of Mist, is the protector of all things masked, hidden, or lost. She is the patron of travellers and protects those who stray far away from the familiar and the safe. Although said to be the Queen Consort of Azurin, the divine creator king, little is known of Ladriel. For reasons lost to time, she is the only god given permission to walk the mortal realms freely. However, because she is never seen, many believe she is now lost to her wanderlust, endlessly stalking the hidden roads of the world in pursuit of the horizon. Followers of the Path of Shadows choose stealth over confrontation. Because of this, Azrai Waywatchers, Aeonir Ghost Striders, and Azure Shadow Warriors often walk this path, but many who feel the call of the wilderness, the need for secrecy, or who just prefer travelling to touring the halls of their kin find solace on this path. Assassins, explorers, merchants, politicians, scouts, spies, and more heed Ladriel's call, ensuring shrines to the Mistwalker and her Path of Shadows are common, especially in Wood Elf society, where isolation and obfuscation are a societal choice. So there's a couple of little quotations, as is often the case when we're writing these little career bits. Nothing is lost to Ladriel. Come, sit, dry your tears, and tell me everything. God's willing, we will again hear the sound of your son's laughter echoing through our halls. And that's from Alathoc Swift-Eye, an Aeonir investigator. And the reason that quotation was there just to show that other careers could very easily follow the path of shadows. And one way of showing that, this is someone on an investigator career, but sitting inside the path of shadows. As another option, never trust those who walk the mist, no matter how deep their love. They always leave, always move on. Only then can you understand Azurin's hard heart and the miracle of Anarian's accomplishments. That's a little bit more speaking to the nature of those who follow the path of shadows and the fact that they are restless spirits that tend to move on. And for elves who have an almost infinite amount of time yawning before them, the idea of something being inconsistent like that is exceedingly difficult. Tilladoc Amberlin then goes, I have patrolled the darkest corners of the deep wood for 3 centuries and feel no more now than I did then to mix with you or any of my kin. Go, leave me. And that's coming from a Waystalker, one of the good old Azrai, who are known for liking the forest more than they like their peers, many of them following the path of shadows as they stalk the paths and kill beastmen or whatever.
And help lost people.
And help lost people, exactly. It is their
raison d'etre.
Raison d'etre in many respects. Not that they'll necessarily show that they were the ones that were doing the actual saving. Okay, so we have ourselves 6 different tiers for this career, which are Shadow Strider, Mistwalker, Shademane, Fade, Greyfair, and the Thousand Masks. But strictures are what we're going to end on here, which is aid those who are lost, as we discussed already. Do not charge, shoot, or cast an offensive spell at an enemy aware of your position. You may have listened to Alamennowyth constantly going, oh, I can't charge that one because they know where I am. Oh, I can't shoot that one because they've seen me. I need to find a better place. And there's a couple of talents that are inside our talent list if you go looking around there that help with this. One of them, for example, allows you to shoot as if you're in the next square. So you could hide behind a tree, take a shot as if you're in the next square. So if anyone spots where that shot came from, they target it wrong, allowing someone who's on the path of shadows, for example, to fire at other people and not give away their position. Because if they give away their position, they're going to have to move and fire from elsewhere. Never sleep in the same location 2 nights in a row. That causes her some issues. The bard's location, as long as it moves on the river, I have allowed her to sleep in the same bed, but not the same location. She is on the move, and that is acceptable as far as I'm concerned. But when it comes to grounding herself in a town, suddenly it becomes much more difficult. And to avoid that, you'll often find that, for example, in her side stream, when she was trapped inside the Grey College, she was awake for almost all of it. So it meant that she didn't need to sleep again in the same room. She has problems. She gets antsy. Learn a secret from all those with whom you travel. This is something that she has done to some aplomb as she's walked through them, discussed with other people, learned about who they are. And finally, mask yourself, as in all of your veils, to all but trusted friends. And mask is somewhat deep. Say, for example, Joros. Joros very rarely wears his own face. He wears the face of someone else, which allows him to always be masked. Adorabelle, for example, hid beneath a mask of paint. There's lots of different ways that one can be masked. The deeper nature of it is her true character is never really shown to anyone but those who are her trusted confidants. And even then, rarely. And in some respects also speaks to why many of the Wood Elf cultures are wearing masks a lot of the time, particularly for some of their various troops, because many of them are on or path of shadows, some equivalent. Okay, so there we go. That's a big, long discussion regarding that. Do we have any comments? Oh, we do have a few. Right. The Phoenix starts off with, I'm really proud that my comment caused Andy to go off on a tangent because I feel like I've unlocked an achievement. Trust me, tangents are not uncommon, but I'm delighted that you like that one. Zotek comes in with, maybe I'm twisted in my understanding, but isn't the old ones that created the elves? The elves birthed the gods, which creates the back and forth relationship.
Yes.
There is a whole big
Just say yes.
fat yes to that one. Zotek and I had a lovely discussion about exactly the gods, the old ones, what came first, where the elves come into it, more than once behind the scenes, and it is something that I've written directly into the lore in more than one place, and it is an interesting situation.
I think I've done it.
Excellent. Just before we do that, we've got very few comments here, so I think I can get on top of this one. Sweet then pops in, I remember the old ones and the gods live in the aether where time has no meaning. You're thinking. Karnak then comes in and goes, easily done. Have you not watched Lord Beards? Always getting sidetracked. That's really not unfair. Zotek comes in and goes, I think I get it. Chicken or the egg? The answer is yes. They happen and happened at the same time because the Aether has its own set of physics-based rules. It follows, indeed, the Aether doesn't use time in the same way that the material realm does. And I think that's something that is exceedingly important to remember when you're having these discussions. And then we go to Typazol, about multiclassing. There is a cult of Magus of Zinch in Enemy Shadow's Companion. There is indeed the cultist that does exactly that. It has the talent double life and allows one to take another profession as cover. I wrote the early version of that, actually.
I don't have it yet. I will have.
Yeah, quite. Story right. So would the consequences of wandering off your path for a player be the accrual of corruption manifesting as Elven, mental mutation, or to reflect demons gnawing on your soul? No, it's actually much more fundamental and sometimes shorter than that. You can literally, by doing it once, die. You can be possessed by a demon on the spot. Things can go very, very wrong. It makes the dangers that demons offer as perceived by humanity look small by comparison. The table is exceedingly nasty. A few corruption points or something similar would be at the top end and really low percentages. The far more likely situation, according to the break and concerned at how deep it is basically you lose your character. It's fate point time. Something has gone exceedingly wrong. Elves, though, and I think this is something that Lindsay was speaking to earlier when we had our little, but you said you can't. And I think it's fair to say this. Elves aren't human.
I can't believe you did it in that voice.
And our elves are deeply different to humans in terms of how their psychology works. They would be, if they were human, classed as being deeply neurodivergent. They become exceedingly obsessive on this. They're exceedingly emotional. They become, in terms of the things that they're working on, it can consume them in a way that humans just don't understand. It would require someone who was quite outside the mental norm to even come close to understanding elves and exactly how they perceive the world around them and interact with it. Transgressing from your path is quite clearly marked with a, if the player does it, warn them, because the elf wouldn't. It's not something that happens by accident. So if it happens, then the player is choosing to transgress their path, and then they will suffer the consequences. The elf, however, will be very clear in their understanding that they would not be doing this because it is just wrong and it feels wrong to them. In the same way that jumping off of a cliff immediately causes a lot of issues for anyone who doesn't want to get really badly hurt, the elf will not do certain things because it will significantly endanger their soul, and they know it. It would be absolutely alien to the way their mindset sits, which is why as a GM, it's your job to say, oi, you can't be doing that. If you do that, you're going to cause some significant problems for your character. And then if they choose to continue doing that, they can suffer the repercussions because that's part of the fun of this. In the end, the agency always lies with the player. And that's loosely what Lindsay would say. That's unfair, but it's not really unfair because she'd get a warning. And she would then go, yeah, I'm not doing that. Fuck that. No.
Yeah, I just thought you meant that, like, you've been writing in the GM blogs that, like, aha, she did it again.
Yeah, no, I haven't.
Without telling me, because I thought I was.
No, I haven't. You've been doing fine. So, loosely speaking, that's how the path works on our side. And it ensures that, in terms of what it actually does in the game, it means that once she's on a path, which for all our elves, they all start on one anyway, they are going to be spreading out their XP across their careers in a way that is far broader than any of the other characters. So as your humans are completing tier 1, the elf will probably only be about halfway through tier 1. As you move into the rank 2 career as a human and start progressing and finishing that, the elf will just be starting on their second one, probably. And they've got so many more skills, so many more attributes, so many more things they have to take. If you remember again in LAWhammer, you don't need to take all of the attributes to complete your career in R1. You need to take 3 of them, where the elves have to take them on their paths, all of them, every single time. They are in many respects running by the rules as written on that particular regard. And it does significantly slow them down. And that is purposeful. Now, that doesn't mean that their characters are worse. It does mean that if they wish to gain access to all the late tier stuff, the cool stuff, it's going to take them a lot longer than it is, say, for example, any of the slower lived species out there. And that's an important component of playing an elf and ensuring that the elves that we're playing in our game don't come to dominate, because as we all know, elven stats are significantly higher. Elf bullshit, as has been a common, let's say, theme at our table. But for all that's the case, I think it's fair to say that if we take a look at all the characters and how they're balanced, everything's working beautifully smoothly. To begin with, the human players are far behind, but they've got much more fate points, and it all balances off with a mixture of luck and a mixture of surviving things that the elf doesn't. The elf survives a bit longer, her fate point drop is a bit slower, and then they all start reaching an almost equal amount. All of our humans now are ahead of Alamennowyth in their individual core locations. We've got Gerhardt, who is on intelligence, completely ahead. We've got the strength coming from Elric on another side. We've got our toughness coming from our good old priesty boy. And they're advancing quickly on whatever their individual careers are in a way that Alamennowyth simply isn't. And again, 100% intentional. That's how it's supposed to work. And okay. I'm pretty happy with that.
I've got some issues.
Right, what's your issues?
I've managed to get everything by taking out some talents that maybe nose for trouble, season travel, or those, right?
Yeah.
Do you think she would have the talent distract? I was like, I'm not going to take it because it's an early one. But then I was like, well, actually, athletics for a distract move. You are skilled at diverting the attention of opponents, perhaps with your words, movements, or the careful maneuvering of your weapon.
So it's a skill I could see her having, but what
a talent.
She get it from? Talent.
She got it from Courtesan.
No. Largely because I don't think that's how she was using it. So I'd be quite happy for her to not have that if you're finding it tough.
No, basically the issue is that I don't have sleight of hand, but that's fine. I didn't get anywhere to get outdoor survival. Oh no, I've got outdoors. I can get outdoor survival now with that 100 XP back. I don't have anywhere to get track.
Have you ever used it?
Yeah, she's used it loads.
Oh, Wood Elf. It's because you lost it from the Wood Elf.
Yeah, it's always her that does the track.
Right, more Elric.
Well, not really. Both of us, really.
Yeah, I'm happy with that loss, largely because you purposely repositioned the story, saying that it's not the Elven skills that the Elven culture that she's drawing her skills from, it's the human one. And that is, I think, a sensible loss. That doesn't fill me with great concern. Stage story, right. I just love the passage you're building. Well, thank you very much. It's genius. Cannot wait to see them laid out when you get to bring them up. It has so many cultural definers that force the difference between them and the other species. Yeah, it's an important component of how we're playing our elves. And I was doing something similar for the dwarves because our dwarves were going to be equally different because we don't want them to simply be humans, because then just play a bloody human. If they're just short humans that I effectively act as humans, then you're just playing a human. What's even the point? I wanted my dwarves to be culturally different and to be, in terms of how they approach their careers, their mindsets, their far more stubborn approach to how they deal with things was going to be reflected in their career choices too. But the dwarf player that we had, sadly, had real life issues that were significantly more important than playing games with us, meaning that she could no longer carry on. So I just did not work on those rules because I didn't need them, but they are a component of my thinking for all of the dwarves, if not necessarily how I built their careers per se. Ganane says, so for the humans, their character variation is produced by choosing a limited number of skills, but in the elves, the variation comes from either or skill choices. For example, yes, plus also, it's not just the variation that comes from that, it's how much you sink into it. Because elves are much more slowly working through their individual careers. that you'll find that they tend to hang around ensuring that they get the bits that they want that apply best for them. So they'll drop a bit more agility.
It's also, I would say it's a different, look at it the other way around. When a human becomes Duke of his lands, does he have to fundamentally change his personality and his outlook upon life? No. When an elf when their parent dies and they become, the prince, they move to the path of leadership and their soul changes, their personality changes. The very essence of what they are changes in a way that wouldn't for a human. And so it's not always like by your choice, right?
Yeah, quite. The question there was more about the variations in how the character is expressed in terms of character sheet. So when you're a human, you've got humans have got lots of choices and they don't need to take them all. Where elves have to take everything.
Yeah, but everyone on the path of leadership is going to be in a different
core career.
Core careers. So
Indeed. And I think that's an important part to remember, that the variation is not necessarily coming from just everyone on that path will be on a whole host of different careers, and we've got freaking tons of them. And the choices that you take as you move through that career are also going to influence what you have. She, as a spy, she might move into I don't know, any of the various spies. You might become an assassin or some equivalent. So a lot of the variations will be the choices that she takes to move through those, plus how many that she actually spends in each of them, because she has to take them all. It's no longer just about the minimums. It's about making sure that the things that she takes actually lands, because she has fewer fate points. So she's got to be good at the things that she does in a way that humans actually don't, because they have far more fate points and they have far more luck. Meaning that they don't need to rely upon the skill number alone. Your number might be your better ones that say 60, 70 or whatever. And that, with a luck point, is almost guaranteed a success. Where on the Elven front, it may be, say, the better ones that say 70, 80, at least until mid-tier, and we move on. But they're almost certainly not going to be re-rolling the vast majority of their tests. Meaning that humans actually tend to pass on average more until you hit end-game levels. And when we reach those levels, the elves are often at a par with the humans that they're sitting beside anyway. So it's totally fine. It all balances out in the long term. So long story short on that one, there is a quite significant amount of variety on the elven side, but it's more because of the limitations the elves have as characters being developed as they progress onwards. So I hope that answers that, Cadane, in a way that you like. Moving on, the David Code, yeah, quite. And Poe Trap Pop said, I'd love to see those dwarf rules anyway. Yeah, I've not written them. And I have a host of things that I'm building for the Rookery just now. Meaning that my time, which I'm, by the way, exceedingly enjoying. And the Rookery needs are almost certainly going to outweigh writing something that I don't need for my current game. Now, the things that I need for my current game, I will write no matter what I'm doing or how much might be on my plate, because I need them, and it's where I take my joy in my life. It's my stress relief. Some people might go play tennis. Some people, I don't know, might pop into a pub and have a good drink with their mates. I write rules for the games that I'm currently working on because I love doing that. Now, if I had a dwarf PC pop along, all that shit would be written. And I would be working my way through an experimental set of rules for that. The path rules have gone through multiple tweaks over time until we've arrived where we are now. They are, I think, working smoothly. Everything that I need for them is in place. Everything for them going wrong is in place, because to begin with, they couldn't go wrong, and it felt character binding. I don't like taking away the agency of a PC. Telling Lindsay, for example, that there's certain things that her character can't do ever, whilst being characterful, is less fun at the table if it is the core thing she needs to do to make the story work. Then it's a sacrifice. She should be able to make that sacrifice and endanger herself to do it. But such a danger is created that in itself becomes a part of the story. And choosing not to do that and stick within her path also becomes part of the story. Player agency rather than the rules themselves dictating, I think, is more important, which is why we did the little change in that.
Yeah, I would definitely dwell on that for some decades.
Yeah.
If I make a sacrifice. No, the other way around.
Kevin drops in and asks, do you have a plan?
I think I'm done.
We'll get to that in just a second. Do you have a plan if a character dies or gets corrupted? Yes.
Screw that guy.
That's super easy. Dies, yes. Gets corrupted, yes. I'll admit, certain story beats that I would like to occur before certain characters die. Each and every one of the 6 PCs have got some very clear ties through to the enemy within that I would like those characters to resolve before they die. They have fate points, so luck is on my side when it comes to that. And so far, it's been going relatively well. There are certain aspects of how we're going to be presenting the Horned Rat that are so massively and fundamentally different to the printed version that you'll see when that eventually lands, why it's important that certain characters are in place. That's just an essential component of us progressing on with our tale. Having said that, though, if we do finish the Enemy Within and we're happy with where we land, and all of us decide that we want to move on to the next step of the campaign, which in our case will be Paths of the Old, and we decide that we want to do Paths of the Old, there are also parts of that campaign that are intrinsically tied to at least 2 of the PCs. So I would like at least 2 of the PCs to survive to that point. In fact, maybe 3, arguably 4. Now, will that happen? Oh no, there are going to almost certainly be deaths, and it's going to be horrendous, and it's going to be awful. But as is often the case with these, I prefer to have player buy-in for PC death. And I don't just mean the players have all agreed that, yes, it might happen and they're going to lose their character and that would suck. I mean that as fate points run out, I would like to ensure that the story that their character is telling with their death is a story that the player also think rocks, and we can move towards making sure that that death means something for the overall plot. Because after all, we all want to create cool, memorable moments. We don't want to be accidentally nicked by a Skaven and then cark it through to an infection. But sometimes we do, because sometimes that's the story we want to tell. Sometimes not all deaths are impactful. Sometimes deaths happen for completely different reasons, and those losses are as impactful because of their random nature as the far more impactful one in terms of what the story might have demanded. So I much prefer player agency in death as much as anything else, but that's all for discussions between players and GMs and exactly how it's resolved. But to cut a long story short, to answer that question, yes, there are plans, and there have already been discussions with most of the people concerning what's going to happen should their characters die.
Not me, because I'm gonna live forever.
Hey.
Yeah. No, we have definitely had that discussion. So entertain act.
Yes.
I had before, but I didn't manage to get that.
It's a basic skill.
Fine.
So,
okay, so
all entertainment, so that's fine.
Okay. And I took Silent Step twice.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to have to in the end to complete both the things. Yeah, no, in fact, I need to have done. But the Silent Step twice I took was urban and rural.
That's not twice. That's once and once.
Oh, sorry. I had to take it once and once because it's in Informer and it's in Path of Shadows.
You could take it once and then take it again twice. I mean,
but that will take more that'll take more XP than taking it once.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, but you don't need to take. But you've already got it once. You don't need to take it a second time.
But my question was, would it be better to have Silent Step Aether? So I'm just passively undetected in the Aether.
Interesting. I like that.
Because it's very Ladriel. It feels like. So which would I ditch, urban or rural, or both? I'll ditch both. So that gives me 100 XP back.
Sweet. So we're almost finished here, and if you are coming in very late to the stream, this stream is very much just Lindsay just rebuilding her character and us discussing elves in general and how we're using them in our game, which, as we have noted, is significantly different to how they're being used inside the core game. And I imagine that any official product will be nowhere near how we're presenting elves, unless they happen to just uplift our rules and somehow decide to copy them, which would be pretty weird if you ask me. But it wouldn't be the first time, because I've had many of my rules that we posted on blogs just ported straight over into other people's work. So be it. That's what happens. Such is fan work, eh? Right, so that all being the case, are we done?
I think I'll keep Silent Step rural, because she can just melt into the forest.
That is always good to keep.
Yeah. But I'll ditch urban because she doesn't melt into the filth of the city.
Because it's filthy and it's filled with bones.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, tree bones. All the dead trees. Just dead corpses everywhere.
Just rotting everywhere. Oh.
Yeah, very amusing. So I will add that Alamennowyth is one of those characters who has got extra parts of her background that we will be exploring later. And this is going to impact this again. We are going to have to rebuild at a later point Alamennowyth.
I'll have more XP
from the ground up. We shall have more XP then. It'll be another adventure in never reaching the second or third tiers of her.
In the third tier of the Path of Shadows, I've been about 1,000 XP away from it for the last 5,000 XP. There is a talent, what's it called? Shadow's Coil, that is D10 minus Shadow's Coil ward save. And I've been 1,000 XP away from that for the last 5,000 XP, and I'm not bitter.
I shouldn't laugh. So we are going to do this again because there is a 20-year gap in her history. She knows what happened in it. We discussed this earlier in the stream, where Alamennowyth was up in the Lorelorn Forest. And our version of the Lorelorn is quite unique because it's the version that I built when I first built the core rules for Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 4. And I wrote an entire Lorelorn treatment. And it was the basis for the Aeonir section inside that rulebook and for how I wrote the Aeonir sections for Aeonir characters or any particular peers or whatever that then came elsewhere. Then I left and they built their Lorelorn in a different fashion. Not surprising, but I'm sticking with my original Lorelorn because, heck, I wrote it. Why wouldn't I want to keep it? And Lindsay's character, Alamennowyth, is a core component of that, largely because her sister, the Queen, is the ruler of the Lorelorn. And our version of Maraseath is quite different to the one that was presented inside the, I think it was Archives 1, perhaps? I think it was Archives 1. It's what originally was going to be the Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay Companion.
Wasn't it the Salzenman?
Salzenman added some extra bits, I presume, but I'm pretty sure it was Archives 1 that did Lorelorn. I don't pay attention to it.
I lost one of my green.
The all-important green markers.
6 different shades here.
So, our version of the Lorelorn is quite different, and we're going to be plumbing into that later. She knows that she went up there. She knows she hung around there, pissing off her sister for a good 20 years, and then hiked it back down to the Empire when certain things occurred that meant the original visions that she saw back when she was Root Weaver, Alamennowyth Root Weaver, came to pass. So we will be filling up the 20 years of that part of her career as well, which will be another couple of careers, but when she's on her path, which means it's going to be additional spy material that she's going to be working through there. So in some respects, it's going to be no different to what she's doing just now. It's just going to be influenced by the events that she had when she was back in the Lorelorn. So let me just check what we have down here. Thanks for streaming, says Sweden. It's been an absolute joy. Adventures in Maths, which is also a Secondhand Samurai. Hey, Secondhand Samurai, I hope you're doing well out there. Popped in, and Digits for Her Throne, quite right too. Portrait comes in with, what does a ward save do? It's actually inside the core book. If you go check the back of the core book inside the bestiary, you'll find ward there amongst the many traits at the back, the monster traits, the creature traits, pardon me, as they were called. And the ward save effectively gives you an armor save, almost like Warhammer Fantasy Battle, where you just roll yourself a d10, and if you roll the ward save number or higher, you ignore that incoming blow completely. And as someone on the Path of the Shadows, that could be it wisps through you or you just move right up. Sorry, Ralph.
Just weren't even where they thought you were.
Yeah, exactly. As it passes through you completely. So ward saves are pretty damn impressive.
Gold dust. They're like gold dust.
They can be a fate point's worth. Just that little opportunity of not being hit by that blow can make a significant difference. And she can take up to, I think, agility bonus divided by 2 times. Is that correct?
Yeah, my agility bonus is currently 5. By then it will be, I hope, 10.
Take it 5 times with a ward save of 6+. Nice. Any hit comes her way, 6+, she ignores it. You can imagine how almost indestructible Joros might be. Indestructible.
We love Joros.
Captain Joros. Let me have a quick check to see if there's any other comments there. Scooter says it's Archives 1. Yeah, that's pretty sure it was. I remember when the first treatment came in for that, because I was still in the job. And B and I had a big long discussion because there were certain things that we wanted to have included inside that. That's almost exactly when I resigned, meaning that all the things that we wanted included in that almost certainly didn't happen. Marisith, for example, was not the first queen up there. She suddenly became like number 4 or something, which in our game is nothing more than the rumors that she herself spreads out there. She, in fact, has been the only queen of the Lorelorn that there has ever been in our version. Well, yeah. It's perhaps more complicated than that. But she has been queen from the beginning, put it that way. But she did also have a twin, a certain Alamennowyth. Anyway.
Before we go,
yes.
One thing. No, I've forgotten.
There's a couple of questions here. I'm just going to finish on it. Lepin pops in and says, thank you so very much. Thank you so much for popping along in turn. 72 cram, 72 cram. I'm not sure why I made that 92. I just made a number up in my head. 72 cram. Would a war save also work against magic items and weapons? Yes, it does. It even works against spells. It is pretty fucking awesome.
It's gold dust. It's like gold dust, I tell you.
Portrak had the book next to him and found it. Excellent. Good to hear. I'm Portrak, delighted that it was there. Is there anything you would like to conclude on before we finish for the eve?
One of the reasons you've been lenient with Alamennowyth in terms of masks and things is because Joros had cast a fancy spell on her that had made her look completely different. Which is how she looked when she went up to the Lorelorn, which is one of the reasons her sister was so outraged.
She was absolutely outraged. Because Joros had placed something upon her that made her look more acceptable to humans. And it made her time when she was in Nuln much more, let's just say, easy. But that came to an end because of the influence of a certain artifact on a barge that was brought out by a certain chap called Gausser, meaning that her true face was made aware, the same face of the Queen of the Wood in the North, indeed, Marisith, because they are twins and look pretty much identical. And yeah, that certainly causes an issue. Zotop pops in and says, is the big name house such as Morathi and Teclis, I presume, also level 6 like Joros? No, not at all. Morathi, we'll discuss her possibly later one. Teclis, though, no. He's the High Lore Master. I need to double check exactly where he is. But someone else has got Hoeth's level 6. It's not Teclis. Teclis, however, is currently deep on his path. At least our version of him is, at least. You warm over there. Yeah, so... yeah. Right, so I think we might be done. Are we done?
We're done.
You have anything else you want to say? Is that quick goodbye to everyone? No. Yeah, screw you guys. I'm going to say thanks so much for...
Oh, yeah, thanks and everything.
Say thanks so much for coming along with us as we've rebuilt Alamennowyth. Have any of our actual characteristics changed? I wouldn't mind knowing that before I stop. Or is it largely the same as it was?
It's... Oh, I deleted it. I deleted yesterday's one.
We're going to say it's largely the same as it was. Just... I
deleted the wrong one.
You did not. There's
No, I didn't delete the wrong one.
My heart was in my mouth. Fortunately, our Google keeps versioning, but
oh, does it? That's good.
It does keep versioning of various things. I've used that for a couple of things. So I'm going to say thanks so much to everyone for turning up.
Her dexterity might be a touch higher than yesterday.
Excellent. Who doesn't like to have a higher dexterity? If you are around tomorrow at 4 p.m. UK time, whatever that is in your own individual areas, we will be lore bearding and doing an introduction to Warhammer fantasy as a whole. The gods alone know how we're going to actually handle that. We are still discussing that behind the scenes. I'm sure it'll be fine. The lore master and I tend to get on with these things relatively well. So that's tomorrow at 4. Beyond that, I would just like to say thanks to everyone turning up. On next Monday, we'll have all the character gen that we did last Friday going up as a video. That's hopefully already on the way to being uploaded. I will go check with the Corner Goblin after the stream is finished. And we're going to be restarting Inside the Rookery very soon over in Rookery Publications. So do watch out for news about that. I'm going to be posting about that in around about half an hour to an hour or so as I go get everything organised over for that. I'm very pleased with that all. Beyond that, let's do a quick bye!